Control your mouth, mind, money, and more. Introduction. There's a war happening inside you, but no one taught you how to fight it. No school gave you a map for the quiet battles, the words you wish you hadn't said, the thoughts that won't. Stop spiraling, the money slipping through your fingers, the habits you hate but still repeat, the people-pleasing that leaves you empty, the anger that flares up in moments you swore you'd stay calm. This book isn't about surface-level hacks or short-term success. It's about reclaiming the power you gave away. Somewhere along the way, we were all taught that control meant being rigid or cold. But real control, the kind that changes lives, is rooted in self-awareness, discipline, and emotional wisdom. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional, and it starts with 4 things no one ever taught you how to master: your mouth, your mind, your money, and everything else that flows from there. Because once you can control what you speak, you can shape how others see you. Once you can control your mind, you stop being a prisoner to your past. Once you can control your money, you stop chasing validation through things that don't last. And once you learn to control the energy, the habits, the relationships, the environments around you, you stop surviving and start living with direction. This isn't just a book. It's a mirror, a challenge, a reset. It's what happens when you stop blaming the world and start training yourself to rise. Every chapter is a tool, every story is a reflection, and every word is written for the version of you that's tired of spinning in circles, tired of the noise, tired of holding back your greatness. If you've ever felt like you were meant for more, but couldn't figure out how to get there, this is your moment, not to control others, but to master yourself, because when you do, everything changes. Read slow, breathe deep, and get ready. The version of you who finishes this book, they don't just hope for power, they live it. Part 1. Control your mouth. Chapter 1. The tongue that builds or breaks. It started at a dinner table, a simple wooden one with 4 chairs and a flickering candle in the middle. A father, tired from work, said something sharp to his teenage daughter. He didn't mean for it to land like a punch, but it did. Her face dropped, her shoulders folded in, and the room fell silent. 1 sentence. That's all it took to change how she saw herself. And what's worse, she never forgot it. That's the kind of power words have, not just to express a moment, but to echo through years, even lifetimes. You've felt it too, haven't you? Someone said something, maybe a teacher, a parent, a partner, that made you feel either 10 feet tall or 2 inches small. That's the power we carry in our mouths, often without realizing it. The power to build someone up or silently break them down. We live in a culture that glorifies saying it like it is, but rarely talks about the responsibility of our tone, timing, or intent. Words are not just tools, they're seeds. You plant them in someone's heart and they grow into confidence, into fear, into shame, into belief. Most of us inherited patterns of speaking that were laced with defensiveness, sarcasm, or emotional heat. We saw adults around us use words as weapons or walls, and without even realizing it, we learned to do the same. But here's the truth. Your tongue isn't just a muscle in your mouth. It's a mirror of your mind, and sometimes your deepest, unhealed pain. You don't speak from your mouth, you speak from your nervous system. Your language reveals where you're at in your healing, your awareness, and your emotional maturity. Think about it. How many relationships have broken not because of betrayal, but because of careless communication? How many moments turned into wounds because someone didn't pause before they spoke? The most dangerous weapon isn't a gun or a fist. It's a sentence said in anger, a truth delivered without compassion, or a lie whispered with charm. And, on the flip side, the most powerful medicine is also language. A sincere apology, a gentle affirmation, or a well-timed "I see you" can restore what years of silence couldn't fix. It's not just what you say, but how, when, and why you say it. That's the real art of control, learning to pause, breathe, and choose words that reflect wisdom, not reaction. We often think controlling the mouth means staying quiet, but true mastery is about alignment, using your voice to build bridges, not burn them. It's asking yourself, will these words plant peace or create chaos? The person who speaks with kindness under pressure isn't weak. They're powerful beyond measure. That's not emotional suppression. That's spiritual precision. Because when you can control what comes out of your mouth, you're also rewiring your mind. You're teaching yourself patience, presence, and poise. And eventually the words that used to sting, spit, or spiral fade away, replaced by something softer, wiser, and more grounded. But it's not easy, especially if you grew up in a loud household, or if trauma taught you to use volume and words as defense. Maybe you talk fast or harsh or too much because silence once felt unsafe. Maybe sarcasm became your mask. Maybe speaking first helped you feel in control. We all have different reasons for how we speak. The goal isn't shame, it's understanding. Because when you trace the roots of your tone, you start to gain the power to change it. You realize my voice doesn't have to repeat what I heard growing up. I can rewrite the script. I can pause before I project. I can speak with love, even when I'm hurting. Imagine being the kind of person whose words feel like shelter. Someone whose presence makes people feel safer, seen and respected. That's not just charisma. That's conscious speech, and it begins with awareness. How do you talk to yourself? How do you speak when no one's listening? How do you respond when you're challenged? Your tongue is either building your legacy or burning it down one careless comment at a time. The good news? You can choose every day, every sentence, every pause. The people around you may not remember your exact words, but they will remember how your words made them feel. That's your legacy. You don't need a stage, a platform, or a title to impact lives. Just your voice, just your tone, just your presence. Every conversation is an opportunity to either plant peace or spread poison. So before you speak next time, ask yourself, am I building something with this sentence, or breaking something I can't rebuild? One sentence can open a heart or close it forever. Which one will you choose to speak? Chapter 2. Silence is strength, not weakness. I once watched a father and son argue in the middle of a grocery store, voices raised, hands flailing, two egos on fire. The boy, maybe 15, was trying to prove he knew something. The father, hardened by his own childhood, couldn't bear being questioned. No one won. The air hung heavy with pride and pain. But in the next aisle over, an older man stood still, listening, observing, saying nothing, just watching with calm eyes. That man had the strongest presence in the room, and he never opened his mouth. That's when it hit me. Silence isn't weakness. It's the loudest kind of power when you've learned to master it. Our culture often glorifies quick comebacks and loud confidence, as if whoever speaks first or most is somehow the winner. But the truth is, the ones who are secure don't always feel the need to speak. Real power is knowing you could say something sharp, clever, or destructive, and choosing not to. Silence can hold a boundary louder than words. It can speak volumes. When someone is yelling, accusing, or trying to pull you into a storm, it's not about shutting down. It's about standing tall in your peace. Silence gives you space to hear your intuition before your impulse. It gives others the chance to reveal themselves. It gives you control over your story, your energy, and your legacy. Most arguments don't need your opinion. They need your maturity. Most drama doesn't need your voice. It needs your absence. And most people yelling the loudest are terrified of their own stillness. The truth is, silence is uncomfortable for those who haven't healed. That's why so many fill it with noise, distraction, or meaningless chatter. But when you choose silence, not from fear but from presence, you claim the rarest kind of self-respect. You become the one who listens longer, speaks wiser, and walks away cleaner. You are no longer available for petty power games, shallow validation, or emotional warfare. You are available only for peace, clarity, and alignment. And that kind of silence, that kind of stillness, that's not just strength, it's sacred. So the next time you're tempted to defend, explain, or react, pause, breathe, let silence be your shield. You don't owe anyone your energy just because they demand your noise. Some of the greatest battles are won in the quiet. Some of the deepest healings happen in stillness. And the strongest people aren't always the loudest. They're the ones who've learned the art of restraint. In a world addicted to noise, silence is a rebellion. And you, learning to master it, are becoming unstoppable. Chapter 3. From Reaction to Response. It was a Monday morning traffic jam. Horns blaring, cars creeping like exhausted ants, and one man slamming his steering wheel as if it owed him an apology. I watched from the passenger seat as the driver, next to us, exploded in rage. He wasn't just mad at traffic, you could feel it. That man wasn't yelling at cars, he was yelling at life. Something in him had no space left, no pause, no breath between the world's pressure and his reaction. That morning made me realize something most of us don't want to admit. Many of us aren't choosing how we live. We're just reacting, like emotional vending machines. Push the right button, and out comes the anger, the sarcasm, the silence, the shutdown. But what if we could interrupt that? What if we could choose who we want to be, even in the moment of heat? The truth is, we were taught how to react long before we knew how to think. Maybe you grew up in a house where yelling meant power, or maybe silence was survival. Some of us learned to argue because it gave us control. Others learned to disappear because speaking up felt dangerous. But reactions are often inherited behaviors, passed down like old furniture from one generation to the next. And unless we become aware of them, we end up repeating emotional patterns that have nothing to do with who we really are. Response is different. Response is power. It's not about pretending to be calm. It's about pausing long enough to let wisdom rise instead of letting the wound speak. Response asks, is this worth my energy? Is this how my highest self would speak? Reacting is a reflex. Responding is a decision. And that difference, just a few seconds of awareness, can change everything. Relationships shift. Tension dissolves. You begin to feel in control, not just of the situation, but of yourself. But let's be honest, pausing isn't easy when you're triggered. When someone disrespects you, when your partner uses that tone, when your child tests your patience, when your coworker sends that email. In those moments, your nervous system hijacks you. Your body floods with cortisol. Your breathing shortens. Your voice gets sharper. Your mind spins faster. And if you're not grounded, you'll say something that sounds powerful in the moment, but costs you later. Regret is often born in a mouth that moved too fast. The work is not to be perfect. It's to build space, micro moments of space. The kind of space that allows you to inhale instead of interrupt, to observe instead of lash out, to wait until your anger isn't driving the car. Sometimes that means counting to 10. Sometimes it means saying, "Can we talk in 5 minutes?" Sometimes it means saying nothing at all, but choosing to say nothing, not collapsing into silence out of fear. The difference is everything. One practice that changed my life was this. Ask yourself, what is this really about, before responding. When someone pushes your button, pause and ask, is this really about the dirty dishes, or do I feel disrespected? Is this about what they said, or what it reminded me of from my past? Naming the root before you speak allows you to respond from clarity, not confusion. Because most of the time, our reactions have nothing to do with the moment and everything to do with what the moment triggered in us. And this isn't just emotional advice, it's spiritual work. Because the gap between reaction and response is the birthplace of your power. It's the sacred space where you meet yourself, where you prove that you are no longer a puppet to your pain, but a student of your growth. Each time you choose response over reaction, you build self-respect. You become someone you trust. It's also the path to better relationships. When you respond instead of react, people feel safer around you. They don't walk on eggshells. They trust your words. Your calm becomes contagious. You teach people how to speak by the way you listen. You teach people how to treat you by the way you hold yourself. Control doesn't mean suppression, it means presence. So here's the challenge. The next time life presses your buttons, don't fight it. Feel it. Breathe. And then choose the version of you who has nothing to prove, but everything to protect. Choose the voice that builds bridges instead of burning them. Choose the words you won't regret. And even if you mess up, and we all do, let that be a moment of reflection, not shame, because the goal isn't to never react. The goal is to become aware faster, to return to yourself sooner, to make the pause your power. And maybe that's the secret. The strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who know when not to speak. Chapter 4. Gossip. The poison. We sip together, it starts small, maybe in the break room, or on the phone with your closest friend, or during a scroll through social media with someone by your side. A name comes up, a smirk appears, and someone says, "Did you hear what she did?" And just like that, we drink the poison like it's sweet tea on a summer porch, sipping it slow, unaware it's slowly corroding who we are. Gossip doesn't feel evil at first. In fact, it often feels like bonding, like connection, like intimacy shared through secrecy. But the truth is, gossip is counterfeit connection. It's intimacy built on judgment, not love. It gives us the illusion of power, of superiority, of being on the inside, but only by putting someone else on the outside. We rarely stop to ask what this habit is costing us. Every time we speak about someone not in the room, we shape our energy, our trustworthiness, and our soul's integrity. We start losing track of our own healing because it's easier to talk about someone else's brokenness. And let's be real, many of us learned this poison early. We saw our moms talk about the neighbors, heard dads mock people in traffic, watched TV shows roast celebrities, and we absorbed it all like oxygen. By the time we hit adulthood, gossip had become a language we knew fluently, but didn't realize. We were speaking at the cost of our peace. You want to know why gossip really hurts? Because deep down, you know the people who gossip to you will gossip about you. And worse, every time you join in, you lower your own vibration just to feel like you belong. It's emotional fast food, tastes good, feels bonding, but leaves a soul hangover. Gossip is never about the person being spoken of. It's about the emptiness inside the speaker. It's a distraction from our own healing. It's easier to point out someone else's flaws than admit we're afraid to face our own. But every time we choose not to engage, we reclaim something sacred, our ability to speak life, not death. Imagine being known as someone who never entertains gossip, someone others trust because they know you protect what's not yours to tell. That's real power. That's real self-control. We don't need to sip the poison to feel included. We don't need to shrink someone else to feel taller. We're better than that. You're better than that. Let others wonder why you're so quiet when the gossip starts. Let them feel the discomfort of your silence, and in that stillness, maybe you'll teach someone else what real respect sounds like. The next time you're offered the cup of gossip, ask yourself, is this conversation helping me grow or helping me hide? Because what we say when no one's watching, that's who we really are. Chapter 5. Speaking Love. When you're angry, there's a moment right before the words come out, when your chest tightens, your hands clench, and your mind spins with everything you want to say. Every insult, every truth bomb, every sharp edge. You've swallowed for too long, and in that split second, love is either remembered or forgotten. We've all felt it, the heat of disappointment, the sting of disrespect, the overwhelming pressure to defend ourselves, prove a point, or finally speak up after staying silent for too long. But anger, if left unchecked, becomes the megaphone that drowns out love. And in those moments, we either build or destroy the very connection we're trying to protect. The truth is, most of us were never taught how to hold space for our emotions without turning them into weapons. We think love means being soft and silence means peace, but that's not how real relationships survive. Real love is fierce. It doesn't disappear when you're upset. It shows up stronger. Speaking love when you're angry isn't about sugarcoating how you feel or pretending you're not hurt. It's about having the discipline to say, this matters, and so do you, even when your voice shakes. It's about knowing that your tone carries more memory than your words, and sometimes the way we say something becomes more damaging than the thing itself. Think about the last argument you had with someone you cared about. Did you speak to be understood or to punish? Were you trying to connect or were you trying to win? Most people fight to be right, not to be real. And when that happens, we stop seeing the person in front of us as human and start seeing them as the enemy. That's when we raise our voice, roll our eyes, walk out, slam doors, or cut deep with words we can never take back. But underneath all that, usually there's a scared version of us just screaming, see me, hear me, please don't hurt me again. That's the tender root of anger. It's usually pain in disguise. And the people we lash out at the most are often the ones we love the most, because deep down we think they should know better, do better, be better. But expecting someone to read our pain without communication is like handing them a puzzle with missing pieces and blaming them when it doesn't look right. Speaking love when you're angry is a learned skill, a spiritual discipline that takes radical self-awareness. It starts with pausing, not suppressing, feeling the heat without letting it hijack your mouth. It means saying things like, "I'm angry right now, but I still care about you," or "I need space, but I don't want to hurt you in the process." These aren't just mature words, they're emotional lifelines. They pull us back from the edge and give the other person a rope instead of a shove. One of the most powerful things you can ever say in a heated moment is, "Help me understand." Those three words shift the conversation from battle to bridge. They turn assumptions into invitations. They show the other person you're not just here to react, you're here to repair. And that's rare, that's real, that's love showing up in the middle of fire. Now, this doesn't mean you allow disrespect. This doesn't mean you silence your truth or walk on eggshells. Love is not about losing your voice. It's about choosing when and how to use it. You can say, "This crossed a line," or "That hurt me deeply," without screaming, shaming, or shutting down. You can have boundaries and still speak with kindness. Because here's the thing, emotional maturity isn't about never getting angry. It's about knowing what to do with that anger when it shows up. It's about protecting the relationship, even while protecting yourself. And that means taking responsibility for your delivery, not just your message. Think about how many relationships have ended not because of a big betrayal, but because of the way people spoke to each other in anger. Words become scars, tone becomes trauma, silence becomes a wall, and suddenly two people who once loved each other don't feel safe in the same room. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you can learn to speak love when you're angry, you can change the direction of your life and your relationships. You create safety, you earn trust, you model something most people have never seen. It starts small, like breathing before replying to that triggering text, like choosing to walk away for 10 minutes instead of unleashing everything in your mind, like writing a note instead of yelling, like choosing the high road even when your ego wants revenge. It's not weakness, it's self-mastery, it's emotional leadership. And in a world where most people run from discomfort or drown in rage, your ability to speak love in hard moments becomes a revolution, a radical act, a kind of quiet power that rewires generational patterns. Imagine raising kids who never hear their parents tear each other down. Imagine being in a marriage where disagreements lead to deeper connection instead of emotional explosions. Imagine being the friend, partner, or leader who people feel safe with, even in conflict. That's what this is about. Not perfection, but presence. Not silence, but sacred speech. Speaking love when you're angry won't always be easy. Sometimes it'll feel impossible. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. And soon you'll notice something beautiful. Your anger doesn't own you anymore. Your emotions pass through, but they don't control your words. And in that space, you find something most people spend their whole lives chasing: peace in the fire, clarity in the storm, and love that doesn't disappear when things get hard. That's the real flex. That's the kind of strength this world needs. So the next time anger rises like a wave, remember this: you are not the wave, you are the ocean. You can rise without wrecking everything in your path. You can speak truth without losing your grace. You can be angry and still choose love. That's the kind of power that heals families, saves relationships, and transforms souls. Part 2. Control your mind. Chapter 6. Your thoughts are not the truth. It was late, close to midnight, when I found myself staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep, haunted by the endless parade of what-ifs and invisible conversations I never actually had. The mind, when left unchecked, can become a theater of suffering. It replays old wounds, writes new tragedies, and convinces you that every worst-case scenario is around the corner. That night I thought, what if I fail? What if they leave? What if I'm just not enough? And the wild thing is, none of those things were actually happening. Nothing had changed in the real world, but inside my head it was chaos. That was the moment I had to learn a truth most people never get taught in childhood. Your thoughts are not facts. They are not gospel. They are not sacred. They are often just echoes of past trauma, parental voices, societal programming, or your own unchecked fears. But when we believe every thought we think, we begin to treat the imagination like a courtroom, and we put ourselves on trial without evidence. The mind is brilliant. It can help us create, protect, prepare, but it can also destroy. That's why controlling your mind isn't about suppressing it. It's about questioning it. Most of us live our lives reacting to every thought as if it's an accurate signal. You think you're a failure? That doesn't make it true. You think, they don't like you. That's not proof, it's projection. The thoughts we think are often built on the stories we've inherited, and those stories were not always written by wise people. Maybe a teacher once told you you'd never amount to anything. Maybe your parents loved you conditionally, so now every relationship feels like a test. Maybe you were rejected in childhood, and now your brain filters everything through the fear of being unwanted. So a text that goes unanswered for 3 hours doesn't just mean someone's busy, it means you're being abandoned again. But that's the lie your thoughts tell, and it's time to stop believing every lie just because it's loud. The first step to controlling your mind is not controlling every thought. It's observing them, watching them come and go like clouds, noticing what thoughts repeat, asking, where did this thought come from? Who taught me to think this way? Does this thought feel like truth, or does it feel like fear in disguise? When you start observing your mind instead of being owned by it, you create space, and in that space, real power is born. The power to pause before reacting, the power to challenge what doesn't serve you, the power to rewrite the beliefs that were planted without your permission. Let's get real. Your mind is not always on your side. It is a survival machine. It looks for danger. It prepares for threat. But growth isn't born in survival mode. It's born when you can step out of fight or flight and into consciousness. You are not your thoughts. You are the one listening to them. And when you learn to separate the noise from the truth, your whole life shifts. You stop chasing approval. You stop explaining yourself to people who will never understand. You stop shrinking every time your mind tells you you're not enough. Imagine what would happen if every time your mind shouted, I can't, you whispered back, is that the truth or just an old tape playing? Because here's the truth. Most of your mental suffering isn't caused by your life. It's caused by your interpretation of your life. Two people can go through the same situation and have completely different inner worlds. One spirals, the other grows. The difference isn't luck. It's awareness, and awareness is something you build. You train your mind like you'd train a muscle, patiently, consistently, with love. Meditation helps. Journaling helps. Therapy helps. Even 5 minutes of silence a day helps. Anything that creates space between you and your thoughts brings you closer to freedom. And freedom is the goal. freedom from inherited fear, freedom from compulsive comparison, freedom from believing the worst about yourself just because your mind is scared. Because here's the secret, your mind is trying to protect you. It just does a terrible job when it's untrained. It sees rejection where there is none. It assumes criticism where only curiosity exists. It remembers pain like it's happening again, and it forgets joy within seconds. But once you start guiding your mind instead of following it blindly, you become dangerous in the best way. You become someone who cannot be manipulated by fear. You become someone who doesn't spin out when things go quiet. You become someone who moves from truth, not from trauma. And that's when life begins to open. That's when peace becomes your default, not just a temporary vacation from chaos. Because peace doesn't come from fixing everything around you, it comes from mastering what's within you. And if no one ever told you this, let me be the first. You don't have to believe everything you think. You are allowed to doubt the doubt. You are allowed to trust yourself even when your mind is full of noise. You are allowed to choose faith over fear, truth over trauma, presence over panic. You're allowed to say, that thought is just a thought, and I don't have to make it my identity. From this day forward, let your new mantra be, I observe but I do not absorb. That's the beginning of real mental control, not silence, but sovereignty. You are not broken. You're just buried beneath years of mental noise. And now it's time to rise. Chapter 7. The Inner Critic, Unmasking the Bully Within. Have you ever caught yourself replaying a moment in your head, hearing a voice that's sharper than a knife, a voice that says things you would never say to your best friend? Maybe it's that familiar whisper, nagging at you when you mess up, telling you you're not enough, that you'll never be enough. The relentless bully inside your own mind who never takes a day off. I remember when I was young, the voice started softly, like a teacher's correction or a parent's sigh, but it grew louder and crueler with time until it felt like it was the only thing guiding me, yet also the thing that kept me stuck. That voice, the inner critic, has a name that sounds innocent but carries a heavy load of judgment and fear. It's the echo of every time we felt unseen, unheard, or unworthy as children, the accumulated voices of authority figures, harsh environments, and the world's impossible standards. But here's the secret. Most people don't understand. Your inner critic is not the truth. It's a distorted shadow of fear disguised as protection. It masquerades as a coach. But it's really a jailer, keeping you trapped in self-doubt because it believes if you try and fail, you'll get hurt. It's trying to keep you safe by convincing you to stay small, silent, and hidden. This bully doesn't want you to grow because growth means facing discomfort and uncertainty, and it thrives on your stagnation. The more you listen to it, the more you internalize its harsh words, and the less you trust your own worth and intuition. Yet, unmasking this bully means learning to recognize when it's speaking, which isn't easy because it's so deeply woven into your mind's fabric. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it sneers quietly, a subtle shade of doubt or a self-sabotaging thought that slips in without warning. But once you can hear it clearly, you can start questioning it. Is this really true? Or is this just fear disguised as criticism? That's the turning point where power begins to shift back to you. Imagine the relief of knowing that the voice inside that screams at you after a mistake isn't your real self. It's a conditioned echo. You don't have to obey it. You don't even have to engage it. You can observe it like a storm passing. Through your mind, temporary and not defining. The next step is learning to cultivate compassion for yourself in the face of this inner attack. Because the bully wasn't born in a vacuum, it came from pain, from survival, from fear. When you meet it with kindness instead of resistance, something extraordinary happens. The voice softens, and the real you begins to shine through, the you that is resilient, creative, and worthy beyond measure. I remember a moment when I sat in front of a mirror, tired of hearing that cruel voice, and instead of fighting it, I said aloud, "I hear you, but I don't believe you." That simple act was a rebellion, a reclaiming of my self-worth, and it's a practice I return to daily. Your inner critic can feel like a lifelong adversary, but it can become a teacher, showing you where your deepest wounds lie and where you need healing most. The journey is not about silencing it forever, that's impossible, but about changing your relationship to it. You become the observer, the compassionate witness who no longer lets the bully run the show. This shift rewires your brain, rewrites your story, and opens the door to true freedom. The irony is, the more you unmask and understand your inner critic, the more courage you find to take risks, make mistakes, and move forward anyway. The bully loses its power because it feeds on fear and secrecy, but light and awareness starve it. So today, ask yourself, what is my inner critic saying right now? And what would happen if I met that voice with love instead of fear? Because the most powerful thing you can do is become the champion of your own story, not the victim of a bully that never deserved your trust in the first place. The journey to unmasking your inner critic is the path to reclaiming your life, your voice, and your freedom. Who will you become when you finally stand up to the bully within? Chapter 8. From Overthinking to Inner Peace. Have you ever found yourself trapped in a room that has no doors, no windows, just the endless echo of your own thoughts? I've been there more times than I can count, lying awake at 2 a.m., heart racing, mind spiraling through every what-if, every mistake, every regret, every impossible-to-solve problem that suddenly feels like it's not just in your head, but building a cage around your soul. Overthinking is a thief disguised as a loyal friend. It promises to protect you, to prepare you, to keep you safe. But what it really does is chain you to an endless loop of fear, doubt, and indecision. It takes the richness of the present moment and drenches it in a toxic fog of anxiety. It makes mountains out of molehills, and then turns those mountains into prisons where the key is lost beneath layers of second-guessing and self-judgment. And what's worse, the harder you try to stop thinking, the louder your mind shouts back. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips away. But here's the thing. Overthinking is not a character flaw. It's a survival mechanism that once served you, even if now it's outgrown its usefulness. It's your brain's way of trying to keep you safe in a world that feels unpredictable and often unforgiving. Yet when this mechanism runs unchecked, it steals your peace and robs you of your freedom. So how do we go from this endless mental chatter to genuine inner peace? It starts with an honest question. What would it feel like to stop arguing with your own mind, to stop treating every thought as a command, an emergency, a crisis? What if instead of battling your thoughts, you could watch them from a distance, like leaves floating down a gentle stream? There, but not controlling you. This shift is the essence of mindfulness and meditation, but it goes deeper than just practice. It's a rewiring of identity, who you believe you are in relation to your thoughts. The moment you realize you are not your thoughts, you open the door to peace. Your mind is a tool, not a master. When you start treating your thoughts like passing clouds rather than absolute truths, something remarkable happens. Anxiety loosens its grip, clarity dawns, and your heart slows down enough to listen to its own wisdom. But this is not easy. Our culture celebrates productivity and doing, and sometimes it feels like slowing the mind means losing momentum or control. Yet inner peace is not found in endless doing or fixing. It's found in surrender, an active surrender, a conscious choice to be present with what is, without needing to change it immediately. It's allowing the storm inside you to pass without needing to chase after the answers. This kind of peace is fierce because it requires courage. The courage to be with your discomfort, your uncertainty, and your unanswered questions. It demands you learn to trust life beyond the safety net of your mental scripts. One way I began to experience this shift was during a moment of deep overwhelm. I was rushing through my day, mind racing between 1,000 worries about work, relationships, and what next. Then, during a rare pause, I noticed the tightness in my chest, the dryness in my throat, and I realized I was living inside my thoughts more than inside my body. I sat down, closed my eyes, and focused on my breath, the rise and fall, the steady rhythm I had forgotten to notice. Each inhale felt like permission to be still. Each exhale was a small release of the tension I'd been carrying. Over time, this simple practice helped me step out of overthinking and into presence. The storm didn't disappear overnight, but I became a calmer witness to it. I learned that peace isn't about silencing the mind completely. It's about changing your relationship with it. You might ask, how can you tell when you're slipping back into overthinking? It often shows up as restlessness, procrastination, disguised as thinking, or a nagging sense of dread that something is wrong, but you can't name what. When you catch yourself there, take a breath and gently remind yourself, thoughts are visitors, not landlords. You have the right to observe, not obey. Another powerful insight is realizing that inner peace is not a destination, but a practice. Like a muscle you build with consistent care. It's cultivated through daily moments of choosing presence, through gratitude that grounds you in the good, through self-compassion when your mind drags you into negativity. And when the mind won't quiet down, that's when movement, creativity, and connection become allies. Dancing, painting, talking with a trusted friend, all can shift the energy from mental turmoil to embodied calm. There's also profound healing in understanding that not all questions need answers, and not all problems need solutions immediately. Sometimes peace means accepting the unknown, trusting that clarity will come in time. This trust is a radical act in a world obsessed with control and certainty. It's a surrender to life's flow without losing your power, because true power isn't control, it's presence, and presence is freedom. Imagine living each day no longer caught in the quicksand of your own mind, but walking on solid ground, able to choose your response rather than react impulsively. Imagine how your relationships would change if you approached conversations with a calm mind instead of a restless one. Imagine how your creativity, productivity, and joy would blossom if your mind became a partner instead of a prison guard. Moving from overthinking to inner peace is not a one-time fix. It's a lifelong journey of peeling back layers of fear and illusion to reveal the still, quiet center that has always been there beneath the noise. It's learning that peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of an unshakable calm within. So today, I challenge you to ask yourself, what would it mean to stop overthinking and start living? What if your mind could become your sanctuary instead of your battlefield? The path to inner peace begins the moment you choose to step out of the endless loop and walk into the present, no matter how messy or uncertain it feels. That choice is yours, and it is the greatest act of love you can give yourself. Chapter 9. Mental Diet. What are you feeding your brain? Imagine sitting down at a lavish banquet, a table spread with every delicacy imaginable. But instead of nourishing food, the plates are filled with gossip, fear, negativity, endless scrolling, and mental clutter disguised as news or entertainment. Every bite is addictive, yet slowly draining, robbing your mind of clarity, peace, and power. This is the reality for so many of us today. Our minds are starving for wisdom, but bloated with distraction and noise. What we feed our brain every day isn't just background, it's the foundation of who we become. The content we consume, the conversations we join, the thoughts we entertain, all form the mental diet that builds our inner landscape. Just like you wouldn't fuel your body on junk food and expect to feel vibrant, you can't fuel your brain on anxiety, outrage, and constant comparison without it shaping your identity in ways that chip away at your self-worth and creativity. I want you to pause right now and ask yourself, what have I been feeding my mind lately? Is it fresh, inspiring, growth-oriented, or is it stale, repetitive, fear-based noise? Too often we give away control of our mental space because it's easier to be passive, to let the algorithms of social media decide what we think, what we fear, and what we desire. But here's the sacred truth. You are the gatekeeper of your mental diet. The power to choose what enters your mind is yours, even if it doesn't always feel like it. I remember a time when I was caught in a cycle of doom scrolling during a particularly hard season, a flood of bad news, social media fights, and toxic debates. It felt like I was living in a storm of voices, each one pulling me deeper into worry and anger. My mental diet was poison disguised as vigilance. One day, I made a radical decision to take a 30-day fast from all news and social media. What followed was astonishing. I felt my mind unclutter, my anxiety ease, and a space open for creativity and calm I hadn't known in years. That break taught me that mental discipline isn't about avoidance. It's about intentional nourishment. Our minds thrive on stories, yes, but what kind of stories? Stories of hope, resilience, and connection, or stories of fear, scarcity, and division? The mental diet we choose daily is like planting seeds in a garden. If we keep planting weeds, the garden of our soul becomes overrun and suffocated. But when we plant seeds of gratitude, knowledge, curiosity, and kindness, those blooms shape how we perceive ourselves and the world. This is why the spiritual teachers remind us to guard our hearts and minds vigilantly. It's not just about protecting feelings, but about shaping reality itself. Every thought we entertain, every video we watch, every conversation we engage in, either builds us up or tears us down. And most dangerously, it can do so quietly, invisibly, beneath our awareness. We don't always notice the slow erosion of our mental landscape until one day we wake up and realize we feel smaller, more anxious, less hopeful. But the good news? Our minds are plastic, meaning we can change what we feed them and over time change the wiring of how we think and feel. Imagine replacing 1 hour of scrolling toxic content with reading a book that stretches your mind, listening to a podcast that feeds your soul, or simply sitting in silence and breathing. That small choice rewrites your mental diet. It's not about perfection. It's about awareness and intention. It's about asking, does this nourish me? Does it inspire growth? Does it bring me closer to my truth? The moment you begin to ask these questions, you reclaim your power. You become an active participant in your mental life rather than a passive consumer. And that is the key to real freedom, because mental freedom leads to emotional freedom, which opens the door to living with courage, clarity, and joy. So, here's the challenge I want to leave you with today. Track what you consume mentally for just 1 day. Write it down, without judgment, just awareness. Notice the themes. Are they fear, hope, inspiration, anger? Then ask yourself, what can I add or remove to make my mental diet healthier? What content feels like poison and what feels like medicine? The power of choice is always yours. Remember, you are what you feed your mind. So feed it with care, feed it with love, feed it with courage, and watch as your life begins to reflect the richness of your inner banquet. What will you choose to feed your brain tomorrow? Chapter 10. Reprogramming your beliefs. Have you ever stopped to consider that many of the limits holding you back weren't chosen by you, but handed down like a family heirloom nobody wanted? I remember sitting across from a woman named Lisa, whose soft voice betrayed a fierce internal struggle. She told me how she had been told since childhood she was not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough, not enough, period. These words, whispered by those meant to love her most, settled into her bones like a script she had no choice but to follow. This is the quiet epidemic of our time, invisible programming that runs beneath our awareness, steering every decision, shaping every emotion, and quietly building the invisible walls around our potential. Our beliefs are the operating system of the mind. But unlike the computers we upgrade, our beliefs are often outdated relics from our past, copied from parents, culture, failed relationships, and painful experiences that we never questioned. The hardest part is that most of these beliefs masquerade as facts. I'm not lovable. Money is the root of all evil. Success means sacrificing your happiness. We live as if these truths are carved in stone, never stopping to ask where they came from, or if they still serve us. But what if you could rewrite the code? What if, just like you clear out old files on your phone, you could delete beliefs that no longer help you and install new ones that unlock your power? Reprogramming your beliefs is the most radical act of self-love and rebellion you can commit. It begins with awareness, catching the story your mind repeats on loop, like a broken record stuck on the worst verse. It means noticing the thoughts that make you feel small, scared, or stuck, and questioning them like a curious child asking, is this really true? The next step is uprooting those old narratives with new, more empowering ones. But here's the truth that so many miss: simply repeating affirmations or chanting mantras isn't enough. Transformation demands a full sensory experience. A belief must be felt in your body, experienced in your emotions, and seen in your actions to truly take root. It requires stepping out of your comfort zone and proving to yourself through experience that you are not your fears. Imagine you grew up hearing, "You'll never be successful." Reprogramming that belief isn't just saying, "I am successful," while feeling the same fear. It's walking into new situations where success is possible, practicing the small wins, feeling the pride in your chest, and watching your identity shift as your actions rewrite your story. This process is messy and vulnerable because it asks you to face the shadows you've hidden from for years. You might need to confront childhood wounds, toxic relationships, or internal voices that have convinced you to stay small for safety. But here's the good news. Every step you take toward reprogramming your beliefs is a step toward freedom. It's breaking the chains that held your soul captive and reclaiming your birthright to live boldly and fully. This is not just psychology. It's spiritual alchemy, turning leaden self-doubt into golden confidence, fear into fuel, and limitation into liberation. And while it's deeply personal, it's also profoundly universal. Every one of us has the power to rewrite the stories that define us, and in doing so, we heal not only ourselves, but the generations to come. Because when you change your beliefs, you change your behavior. And when your behavior changes, your life changes, and so does the ripple effect you create in the world. So ask yourself right now, what beliefs are running your life without your permission? Which stories have you inherited but never owned? And what new beliefs are waiting for you to claim, ready to set you free? The invitation is clear. Step into the uncomfortable, the unknown, the unlearned, because beyond those borders lies the truth of who you were always meant to be. Will you take the courage to rewrite your story today, or will you stay a prisoner to a script that no longer serves your soul? Your mind is not your master, it is your canvas. What masterpiece will you paint? Part 3. Control your money. Chapter 11. Money isn't evil, but avoiding it is. I want you to think back to the first time someone told you money was the root of all evil. Maybe it was your parents, your church, or a passing comment overheard. In a crowded room, that phrase, so often repeated, has buried itself deep in the cultural soil of so many of us, poisoning the roots of our relationship with money before we ever had a chance to know it differently. But here's the radical truth, that no one often says money itself is not evil. Money is a tool, neutral and silent, waiting for the hands that shape its story. It's the intent behind how we use money that makes it sacred or destructive, empowering or enslaving. The real danger isn't money. It's the fear and shame around money. Avoiding it, denying it, or pretending it doesn't matter is what traps people in cycles of lack and frustration. I've seen it again and again. People who avoid opening bank statements like they're forbidden books, who never learn about saving or investing because their childhood taught them money is dirty or bad, who push away opportunities out of a quiet, unconscious belief that they don't deserve financial freedom. And that avoidance isn't just a financial problem, it's an emotional, psychological wound that manifests everywhere. It's fear dressed in excuses, disguised as humility or spirituality. You might hear someone say, "I don't care about money," but beneath that statement often lies a trembling heart afraid of judgment or failure. Avoiding money conversations, avoiding understanding your own money story is like turning your back on a wild animal you don't understand. You don't trust it, so you don't face it, but it lurks in the shadows, controlling you more than you control it. When I first began to take my finances seriously, I realized how much money had been this shadow over my life, shaping decisions silently. I avoided budgets because they felt like chains, and I avoided investing because it felt too complex or not spiritual enough. Yet every time I dodged it, I felt less free, less in control, more powerless. It wasn't until I stopped treating money as the enemy that I could begin to change my story. Money became a mirror, reflecting my own beliefs about worth, scarcity, and abundance. If I believed I was worthy of abundance, money became a welcome visitor. If I saw myself as undeserving, money slipped away or never fully arrived. This is why avoiding money is one of the most self-sabotaging things we do. It's not about greed or materialism. It's about honoring the fact that money enables freedom. Freedom to care for yourself. Freedom to give generously. Freedom to create. Security and joy for those you love. There's a profound spiritual practice hidden in facing your money head-on. It demands honesty, self-reflection, and courage. It forces you to ask, what do I really believe about myself, about my worth, about the universe's willingness to provide? These questions are uncomfortable, yes, but they are the doorways to transformation. When you learn to talk about money openly, when you become curious instead of afraid, you shift from victim to creator. You no longer blame money or avoid it. You take responsibility and reclaim your power. It's why financial literacy isn't just math. It's self-love. It's why building a healthy money mindset is as important as any meditation or therapy you might do. When we avoid money, we avoid a crucial part of our own freedom and growth. This avoidance often looks like procrastination, putting off paying bills, ignoring investments, spending mindlessly without tracking where money goes. These habits aren't just careless. They're emotional defense mechanisms designed to keep us small and stuck in a survival mindset. But here's the challenge. What if controlling your money isn't about control at all? What if it's about learning to flow with money like a river, directing it gently but firmly, not wrestling it into submission? That's where wisdom lies. Understanding that money is energy, and energy flows where attention goes. When you give money your attention, study it, plan it, respect it, you become a steward of your own destiny. You're no longer a passenger on a journey driven by scarcity, but the captain steering toward abundance. This shift is revolutionary because it rewires your nervous system to feel safe around money. It calms the fight or flight that scarcity triggers. It opens you to receive instead of repel. And with this calm, new possibilities appear. Smarter spending, intentional saving, courageous investing, generous giving. Money becomes a tool of alignment, not anxiety. In this way, money isn't the enemy. It's the mirror showing us where we need healing, where we need to grow, and where we can expand into our full potential. The next time you catch yourself avoiding a money conversation, ask, what am I really afraid of? What story am I telling myself that keeps me stuck? Because underneath every money avoidance is a fear waiting to be faced and transformed. And when you do face it, you find that money is not the villain you imagined. It's a powerful ally ready to help you build the life you deserve. So take a deep breath and lean in. Control your money by befriending it, understanding it, and using it with intention, because the only evil is the avoidance that steals your freedom. Chapter 12. Spending from emotion versus intention. Have you ever found yourself standing in the checkout line, heart racing, credit card in hand, eyes locked on something that promises instant relief? Maybe a flashy gadget, a trendy outfit, or an expensive coffee you don't really need. I've been there more times than I can count, caught in the invisible trap of emotional spending, the sneaky place where money isn't really about dollars or cents, but about feeling seen, loved, or just momentarily happy. One rainy evening, after a brutal day when nothing seemed to go right, I found myself scrolling online, mindlessly clicking "Add to Cart" on things I didn't want or even need. The cold truth hit me only when the package arrived, unopened, cluttering my apartment. And my conscience. Spending from emotion feels like a quick fix, a way to soothe anxiety, boredom, loneliness, or stress. But it's a hollow kind of relief that evaporates fast and leaves behind a shadow of regret. It's the difference between a fleeting high and lasting peace. On the other side of the coin is spending with intention, a rare but powerful act of aligning your money with your values, goals, and true needs. This isn't about deprivation or obsession with budgets, but about reclaiming your power, your freedom, and your dignity. Intentional spending asks you to pause and listen deeply before you buy. Why do I want this? What am I really seeking? Will this investment nourish me or numb me? When you learn to distinguish these motives, you start to break free from a cycle that keeps many of us trapped, buying to fill a void that money was never meant to fill. This pattern often begins early, sometimes rooted in childhood memories or family dynamics around money. Maybe you grew up in a home where spending was scarce and every purchase felt like a risk. Or maybe it was the opposite, where lavish spending masked deeper emotional wounds no one dared name. Either way, these patterns embed themselves so quietly that we don't realize they're driving us until the bills pile up and the stress creeps in. But here's what's beautiful. Spending with intention is also a form of self-love and self-respect. It's saying, I see you, I honor my needs, and I refuse to be ruled by impulse or fear. It's a radical act of control in a world designed to make us consume mindlessly, to tell us that more stuff equals more happiness. We live in a culture where advertising whispers lies into our ears every day, convincing us that the next purchase will fix our loneliness or boost our self-worth. But no amount of stuff can fill the hunger inside. That hunger is for connection, purpose, and peace. When you shift from emotional spending to intentional spending, you begin to see money not as a tool of escape, but as a tool of creation. You invest in your growth, your experiences, your future, not just your immediate gratification. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey that asks for patience, self-compassion, and fierce honesty. You will stumble and buy things you regret. That's part of learning. But with each conscious choice, you rewrite your story, from one of scarcity and anxiety to one of empowerment and clarity. You learn to savor money, to make it work for you, and not the other way around. The real transformation happens not just in your bank account, but in your mind and heart. When your spending reflects your deepest intentions, you no longer need to chase happiness through things, because you've found it within. So the next time you reach for your wallet, ask yourself, are you spending from a place of love and intention, or are you trying to silence something inside you with stuff? That question alone can change everything. Chapter 13. Budgeting Without Shame. There was a moment early in my 20s when I sat across from a financial advisor, my hands trembling as I handed over a pile of receipts and bank statements, my voice barely above a whisper as I confessed, I just don't know where my money goes. I felt small, embarrassed, like admitting my finances were a mess was admitting a personal failure. It wasn't just the numbers on the page. It was the shame wrapped around them, the silent judgment I carried every time I checked my bank balance or ignored a bill because I was too afraid to face it. That shame was heavier than any debt. If you've ever avoided opening a bank app or felt guilty after buying a latte you didn't really need, you know what I mean. Budgeting for many of us isn't just about math. It's about confronting a lifetime of messages that whisper, "You're not good enough to handle this," or "You don't deserve financial freedom." It's the echo of childhood poverty, fears, the shadow of parents who argued about money, the weight of cultural taboos around talking openly about wealth and worth. But here's the radical truth. Budgeting isn't about restriction or failure. It's about freedom and self-respect. It's a declaration that your money is a tool, not a master, and that you deserve to live a life of abundance, however that looks for you. The first step to budgeting without shame is rewriting the story you tell yourself. Instead of, "I can't afford this," try, "I'm choosing how to spend my resources." Instead of, "I'm bad with money," try, "I'm learning to manage what I have." This simple shift is like turning on a light in a dark room. You see where you're really standing, and that clarity is powerful. The practical part of budgeting means setting clear intentions for your money, but the emotional part means forgiving yourself for past mistakes and letting go of the guilt that keeps you stuck. Money is deeply emotional because it's tied to survival, safety, and self-worth. When you learn to treat budgeting as an act of self-love, not self-punishment, it stops being a chore and starts being a form of empowerment. Imagine sitting down each month, not with dread but with curiosity. Where did my money go? What choices made me feel alive, and which ones left me empty? When you budget without shame, you reclaim your agency. You start to see money not as an enemy, but as a partner in your journey. It's the freedom to say yes to opportunities that nourish you, and no to those that don't. You become a steward of your life's resources, crafting a future you actually want to live. And here's the beautiful paradox. As you control your money begins to control less of you. You break the cycle of scarcity thinking, where every penny feels like a battle, and replace it with abundance thinking, where resources flow because you treat them with respect and care. Budgeting without shame also means setting boundaries with others, saying no to loans or gifts that strain your well-being, or being honest when you can't participate in expensive outings. Real control means protecting your peace, even when it feels uncomfortable. It means turning down the noise of comparison, the temptation to keep up, and the pressure to perform financial perfection. The people who truly matter will respect your choices. Those who don't were never meant to walk this journey with you. In this process, you also learn patience. Financial health is not a race, it's a practice. There will be months of progress and months of setbacks. When shame creeps in, remember that every step forward is a victory. You're healing not just your bank account, but your relationship with yourself. Ultimately, budgeting without shame is about more than numbers. It's about reclaiming your dignity, your voice, and your power. It's a promise you make to yourself that you deserve security and joy, that you're worthy of abundance, and that you're capable of building a life that feels whole. So the next time you sit down with your finances, lean into that moment with compassion. Breathe through the fear, silence the inner critic, and remember, you're not defined by your past mistakes, but by the courage you show in choosing differently today. What story will you tell yourself about your money tomorrow? Will it be one of fear or freedom? The choice is yours, and that's the first step to budgeting without shame. Chapter 14. Investing in what you can't see. Have you ever stood at the edge of a forest, watching the sun's light barely touch the tips of the tallest trees, feeling a mix of awe and uncertainty? You know the forest is vast, filled with life, roots tangled deep beneath the soil, but all you see are the trunks and leaves above, and the shadows they cast. Investing in what you can't see feels exactly like that, like trusting a world beneath the surface, a quiet power that builds, slowly, unseen but absolutely real. This chapter is about that invisible world of inner investment, the energy, the thoughts, the self-love, the healing, the growth, and why this kind of investment is the most valuable, the most transformative, yet the most overlooked currency we hold. We live in a culture obsessed with tangible proof. Bank statements, trophies, titles, followers, clicks. It's easy to measure what's on the surface, but beneath all that lies the truth that your outer world is simply a reflection of your inner landscape. The house, the car, the career, the relationships, they all begin in the quiet soil of your mind and spirit. Imagine if you could plant seeds of kindness, patience, and self-respect today, watering them daily with intention and presence. They won't bloom overnight, and you won't always see their progress. But beneath the soil, roots stretch, grow stronger, and prepare to rise. I remember a time when I was obsessed with external achievements, chasing promotions, likes, and approval, like a parched traveler chasing an oasis. But no matter how many wins I collected, I felt a hollowness inside. One day, I sat in silence and asked myself, what am I really investing in? The answer wasn't a new job or a bigger paycheck. It was my own peace, my own soul's health. I realized I'd been spending my energy on what I could see, the glitter and noise, and neglecting what I couldn't see, the quiet growth inside. This invisible investment is what Eckhart Tolle calls presence, what Brené Brown names wholeheartedness, and what Jay Shetty frames as alignment with your purpose. It's the practice of showing up for yourself when no one's watching, the discipline of choosing what nourishes your mind over what distracts it, the courage to heal wounds that no one else can see but you. Investing in what you can't see means developing emotional intelligence, the ability to notice your feelings without judgment and to respond rather than react. It means rewiring old beliefs that no longer serve you, like I'm not enough or success only comes through struggle. It means forgiving yourself for mistakes hidden in the past and giving yourself permission to grow into your fullest potential. This kind of investment looks like daily meditation, journaling, therapy, or simply moments of stillness. It looks like setting boundaries that protect your peace, even if it means saying no to people or habits that drain your energy. It's cultivating gratitude for the little things that don't make headlines but build resilience, a sunrise, a kind word, a deep breath. The challenge is that this invisible work often feels frustrating. Progress is slow, sometimes imperceptible. It demands patience in a world addicted to instant gratification, but the rewards are profound. The more you invest in your inner world, the more your outer world reflects strength, clarity, and joy. Imagine your mind as a garden. The thoughts you nurture become the flowers or weeds of your life. When you cultivate positivity and self-compassion, you invite beauty and abundance. When you feed fear and doubt, you allow darkness to spread. The truth is, every choice you make is a deposit or a withdrawal from this inner bank account. The most successful people aren't just those with the biggest portfolios. They're the ones who master the art of investing in themselves beneath the surface. They understand that wealth isn't just money, but the richness of their character, relationships, and peace. The invisible investments also show up in your money mindset. When you invest in learning about money, educating yourself about budgeting, saving, and investing, you empower your future. When you shift from scarcity to abundance thinking, you open doors you never imagined. This is why so many who work hard still struggle financially. They are not investing in their mindset or emotional health. The real ROI is in how you feel about money and your ability to make it work for you, not against you. Investing in what you can't see also means trusting the process. You may plant a seed today and never see the fruit, but someone else will reap the harvest years from now, maybe your children, maybe your community. This legacy of invisible work is what makes life meaningful. It's the quiet, unseen labor of love that changes generations. If you struggle with doubt, remember this: most growth is invisible, but it's happening every day. Your mind is changing, your heart is healing, your spirit is expanding. Keep watering those roots. Keep choosing what elevates you instead of what numbs you. The discomfort of inner work is real, but so is its power. This is the secret of true wealth. The courage to invest in what you cannot see yet, knowing it will shape everything you can. So here's the question you must ask yourself. What invisible investment are you neglecting today? What inner garden are you willing to tend, even when no one else notices? Because when you control the unseen, your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, you control the foundation of everything that follows. And that, more than any external victory, is the power to rewrite your story. Chapter 15. Generational Wealth Starts with You. When I was a child, I used to watch my grandmother carefully pass down a small stack of worn bills to my mother. Money that was never just about buying things, but about a promise, a thread weaving our family's past into its future. But even more than the money itself, what she passed down was a silent story, one of struggle, sacrifice, and an unspoken scarcity that hovered over us like a shadow. Generational wealth is rarely just dollars and cents. It's the stories, beliefs, and patterns we inherit, sometimes like gifts, sometimes like chains. For many, the word wealth conjures images of bank accounts, stocks, and mansions, but the true power of generational wealth goes deeper. It is about creating a foundation that frees not just your bank account, but your mind and spirit. It starts with you, right here, right now, and it demands a kind of self-mastery that transcends money alone. If you grew up in a home where money was a source of stress, shame, or silence, then you are carrying invisible baggage that can weigh down your efforts before you even begin. The stories you heard, money doesn't grow on trees, or we're just not the kind of family that gets rich, aren't just phrases. They are the roots of a scarcity mindset passed down through generations. These limiting beliefs shape your relationship with money in ways you may not even notice. They make you afraid to ask for a raise, to save consistently, or to dream beyond what seems possible. But here's a truth that might shake you. If you want to build generational wealth, you first have to rewrite those stories. You have to become the author of a new family narrative, one that says, "Abundance is my birthright. I am worthy of prosperity. I can create freedom for the generations to come." And this rewriting doesn't come from denial or magical thinking. It comes from intentional, courageous work on your mindset and habits. The first step is healing your personal money wounds. Reflect on how your earliest experiences with money shaped your beliefs. Were you taught that money is scarce? Were you made to feel guilty about spending or ashamed about asking for help? Did you see adults around you struggle with debt or feel powerless? Acknowledge those wounds without judgment. They are part of your story, but don't have to define your future. From there, learn to respect money as a tool, not a master. Control your spending with love, not fear. Build savings not out of obligation, but from self-care. Investing in your financial education is also an act of rebellion against generational poverty. Understand how money works, even if it feels intimidating. Start small. Open a savings account, track your expenses, or read one book about investing. This knowledge is the seed that grows into financial empowerment. But generational wealth is not only about accumulating assets, it's about legacy. It's about setting examples for your children and grandchildren on how to treat money with respect and integrity. Your actions teach far louder than your words. When you model healthy financial habits, talking openly about money, practicing generosity, saving with purpose, you break the cycle of secrecy and shame. Remember, your relationship with money affects the emotional climate of your family. When money conversations are filled with fear or conflict, they pass trauma down like an unwanted heirloom. But when you bring transparency and calm to these talks, you gift future generations permission to dream bigger and live freer. Another powerful part of building generational wealth is cultivating multiple streams of income. Relying solely on one paycheck may feel safe, but it's often a fragile foundation. Side hustles, investments, and entrepreneurial ventures can diversify your financial landscape and create buffers for hard times. Yet, the most valuable wealth you can create might be the wealth of character, integrity, resilience, and emotional intelligence. These qualities will help you steward your financial resources wisely and navigate challenges without losing sight of your purpose. The temptation to chase quick money or shortcuts can be strong, but true wealth is slow-cooked and intentional. It requires patience, discipline, and a mindset of growth. It's also vital to remember that wealth is a vehicle for impact. As you accumulate resources, ask yourself, how can I use this to uplift my community? How can my success be a beacon, not just for my family, but for others? Generational wealth isn't about hoarding. It's about creating ripples of freedom and opportunity that extend beyond your immediate circle. Many who achieve wealth find themselves at a crossroads, wondering if they'll be able to hold on to it, or if it will slip away like water through their fingers. The secret lies in stewardship. Wealth without wisdom fades. Investing time in learning how to manage and protect your assets is just as important as earning them. Build a team of advisors you trust, financial planners, accountants, and mentors who can help you navigate complex decisions and plan for the long term. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Doing so is a strength, not a weakness. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself and your family is financial literacy. Teaching your children early about money's value, budgeting, and the importance of saving. This knowledge arms them with tools to avoid mistakes and build on the foundation you create. But generational wealth also calls for emotional generosity. It requires you to release control, to forgive past mistakes made by those who came before you, and to trust that you are creating something better. Holding onto resentment or shame about money only keeps you tied to the past. When you forgive, you free yourself to move forward. In this way, generational wealth is as much about emotional inheritance as it is financial. Finally realize that the journey toward generational wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, and times when the weight of your family's history feels heavy. But with every mindful choice, you chip away at limiting beliefs and lay stones on the path toward lasting freedom. Your commitment to this work is a revolutionary act of love for yourself, your ancestors, and your descendants. You are the bridge between what was and what can be. Control your mind, your mouth, and yes, your money, and watch how the ripple effects of your discipline and courage create a legacy that no one can take away. So ask yourself, what story am I telling about money? Is it one of fear and scarcity, or one of hope and abundance? The power to shift that story and the wealth that comes with it starts with you. Part 4. Control your energy. Chapter 16. Who you're around is who you become. It was a late Saturday afternoon when Mia sat on her porch, watching her kids play in the yard. She had recently moved to a new city, hoping to rebuild her life after years of feeling stuck and drained. Her phone buzzed with a message from a friend she hadn't talked to in months. It read, "Are you sure this is the right crowd for you? I miss the old you." Mia paused, heart heavy. The truth she didn't want to admit was this. Since moving, she had fallen into a circle that felt easy but left her energy flat, her dreams muted, and her spirit small. That message was a wake-up call. It made her realize something fundamental. The people you choose to spend your time with shape who you are in ways you don't always see, until you step back and look. We've all heard the saying, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." It's easy to dismiss as cliché, but the truth runs deeper, tangled in our cells and subconscious. The energy around us is like water in a fishbowl. We absorb it, swim in it, and eventually it changes how we breathe, move, and see the world. Who you're around isn't just about companionship. It's the soil your soul is planted in, the air your mind inhales, and the current that either carries you forward or drags you under. When your circle buzzes with negativity, doubt, and fear, it seeps into your bones, clouding your thoughts and dulling your ambition. But when you surround yourself with people who dream bigger, act with courage, and carry kindness in their hearts, you find yourself rising without even trying. This isn't magic, it's biology. Psychologists talk about emotional contagion, the subconscious transfer of moods and attitudes. Your brain mirrors the people around you, syncing to their rhythms, adopting their outlooks. You can literally become a happier, calmer, more driven version of yourself just by changing the company you keep. But that's the tricky part. Sometimes the people around us are comfortable because they mirror our fears, habits, and limitations. They create a zone where change feels too risky. Mia's new friends were fun, but their conversations circled endlessly around complaints and small talk. Her old friend's message reminded her of the fierce woman she once was, the one who chased goals, set boundaries, and refused to settle for less. When she recognized that her environment was choking her potential, Mia began the slow, often painful work of shifting her energy. She started seeking out people who inspired her, mentors who radiated calm confidence, friends who challenged her to grow, and even strangers whose stories gave her hope. The change wasn't instant, but with every new connection, her energy shifted. She found herself thinking clearer, smiling easier, and dreaming bigger. This is the power and the responsibility of choosing your tribe. It's not just about feeling good in the moment. It's about planting your life in fertile ground where your soul can thrive, not just survive. But how do you know if your current circle is right for you? What if you're afraid to let go? What if loneliness looms like a shadow? These are real fears, but they're also invitations to deeper freedom. The first step is honest reflection. Do the people around you lift you up or pull you down? Do they celebrate your growth or quietly judge your change? Do they inspire courage or feed your doubts? If the answer leans toward the negative, it's time to start shifting. That doesn't mean cutting everyone off overnight. It means setting new boundaries, saying no more often, and making space for new energy to enter your life. You might begin by limiting time with people who drain your spirit and investing more in relationships that fuel your fire. You might join groups aligned with your passions or reach out to people who embody the qualities you want to develop. This kind of energy control is a daily practice, a discipline of self-love. It asks you to be brave enough to choose yourself when it feels easier to stay small. It asks you to trust that the universe will replace what you release with something better, even if you can't see it yet. There's a spiritual side here too. Ancient wisdom teaches that energy follows intention, that the company you keep shapes your vibration. When you commit to being around those who uplift and inspire you, you're aligning with a higher frequency, a life that feels expansive, joyful, and full of possibility. This doesn't mean you won't face hardship or loneliness. Sometimes, growth requires walking alone for a time. But in that solitude, you reconnect with your true self. And when you step back into the world, you attract the right tribe, the ones who see you, support you, and challenge you to be your best. There's a beautiful story about a man walking through a forest who comes across a clearing filled with wildflowers. Each flower needs certain soil, sun, and water to bloom. The man realizes that if he tried to plant a desert cactus there, it would never thrive. This is how your energy works. You must find your fertile soil, your right people, right places, and right vibes to truly bloom. When you control who you're around, you control your environment. And when you control your environment, you control your life. Mia's journey reminds us all that we are not victims of circumstance. We are architects of our energy. The faces we choose to surround ourselves with either build us up or tear us down, often in subtle, unseen ways. What if today you made a promise to yourself to carefully curate your circle, to choose energy that lifts instead of drags, that expands instead of confines? What if you treated your relationships like a sacred garden, watering what grows good and pruning what no longer serves? Who you spend your time with is not just a reflection of where you are, it's the key to where you're going. So the real question isn't just who you're around now, it's who do you want to become? Because in the end, the energy you soak in will become the energy you radiate. Are you ready to rise by choosing better company? Will you dare to walk toward the light, even if it means stepping away from the familiar? The choice is yours, but remember this. Your tribe shapes your vibe shapes your life, and your life shapes your legacy. Who will you become when you control the energy you absorb? The journey begins with one step, one choice, to take back your power and curate a life worth living. Chapter 17. Protecting your peace is a discipline. The first time I realized peace wasn't just a passive feeling, But a fierce act of courage was the moment I decided to walk away from a relationship that drained me dry. It wasn't an explosive, a breakup or a dramatic falling out. It was a quiet, gradual realization that the constant noise, the endless demands, and the emotional exhaustion were stealing my soul's quiet light. I was desperately holding on to what I thought was love, or loyalty, or responsibility, but what I was really clinging to was chaos, disguised as connection. That's when the truth hit me like a thunderbolt. Peace is not a gift handed down from the universe when life's easy. It is a discipline, a practice, a daily commitment that requires boundaries as firm as steel and as sacred as prayer. In our loud, hyper-connected culture, peace feels like a scarce resource, something to be chased on weekends, vacations, or in fleeting moments before sleep. But what if protecting your peace was the most radical act of self-love you could practice? What if peace wasn't a passive state but a skill, forged through choice, intention, and sometimes painful sacrifice? This chapter is about owning that truth, stepping into the discipline of guarding your inner sanctuary and understanding why it's the foundation for every other kind of control we crave, over our mouth, mind, money, and more. Let's start by naming the enemy. Distraction. Distraction wears many masks in modern life. Emails pinging like alarms, social media scrolling that never ends, toxic relationships that demand your emotional currency, and even your own racing thoughts sabotaging calm. Distraction doesn't just pull at your attention. It drains your spirit. It blurs the line between what you can control and what you desperately want to fix but cannot. When you're perpetually busy but chronically unsettled, you aren't living, you're surviving. The discipline of protecting peace means recognizing this trap, naming it clearly, and building walls that keep the noise out. It means saying no to the requests, conversations, and obligations that leave your soul bruised and your mind spinning. And here's the hard part. Protecting peace often means disappointing people, breaking patterns, and standing alone in a room full of noise. It's a kind of lonely bravery that feels like rebellion against the world's expectations and your own conditioned need to please. But peace is not weakness. It is power. When you protect your peace, you reclaim your energy. You reclaim your time. You reclaim your ability to think clearly, speak calmly, and act with intention. Think of peace as a well you must keep from drying up. Every compromise to your boundaries is like digging that well a little shallower. Over time, you find yourself thirsting for calm, but the source has run dry because you never guarded it fiercely. Protecting your peace is a muscle. At first, it feels awkward to say no, to walk away, to disconnect. The people around you might label you as difficult, cold, or selfish. That's because peace challenges the status quo of drama, distraction, and emotional chaos. It's easier for others if you remain accessible and malleable, if you absorb their problems, if you numb yourself to discomfort. But that pattern kills your spirit slowly. Discipline here means learning to hear the quiet voice inside that says, "This is enough. This is too much." It means practicing the courage to choose yourself day after day. Another hidden truth about protecting peace is that it requires vigilance against the internal saboteurs, fear, guilt, and the need for external validation. Fear whispers, "If you protect your peace, you'll be alone." Guilt says, "If you say no, you're abandoning people who need you." And validation demands, "If you don't please, you won't be loved." These inner voices can be louder than any external chaos, and they work overtime to keep you trapped in unhealthy cycles. The discipline of peace involves recognizing these saboteurs for what they are: lies that feed on your depletion. When you meet these voices with compassion but hold firm your boundaries anyway, you step into the kind of self-mastery that rewires your brain and transforms your life. It is a radical act of rebellion to prioritize peace over pleasing. Protecting peace also means choosing your environment wisely. The people you surround yourself with are mirrors and filters for your energy. Toxic relationships act like emotional vampires, draining you of vitality and clarity. Peace is not a luxury reserved for the isolated or privileged. It is a necessity for everyone who wants to live fully, but it requires courage to cut ties with those who consistently pollute your mental and emotional space. Sometimes protecting your peace means saying goodbye to family members, friends, or colleagues who don't respect your boundaries. Other times, it means unplugging from social media's endless scroll of comparison, outrage, and distraction. Every disconnection is a bold reclaiming of your mental real estate and spiritual soil. Another layer of this discipline is daily practice. Protecting peace is not a one-time act, but a lifestyle. It's meditation when your mind races. It's a deep breath before responding to conflict. It's turning off your phone to avoid the noise. It's carving out sacred moments of silence to reconnect with your soul. These practices build resilience against the world's constant attempts to steal your calm. They build a fortress inside that no external storm can topple. And in this fortress, you find clarity to make better decisions about your money, your mouth, your mind, and your more. Here's where it gets really transformative. When you protect your peace, you don't just heal yourself, you heal your world. Calm people create calmer environments. When your energy shifts from reactive chaos to grounded presence, your relationships improve, your work becomes more focused, and your financial decisions more aligned with your values. You become a beacon of stability in a sea of distraction. People notice this shift even if they can't name it, and that ripple effect is how change happens, one peaceful soul at a time. So what does it look like in real life? Imagine declining that last-minute invitation that you know will drain you, even if everyone else says you're missing out. Imagine telling a friend you need space, even if they get upset. Imagine turning off your phone before bed, no matter how tempting the distraction. Imagine waking up and choosing silence before diving into the chaos of the day. These aren't small acts. They're acts of defiance against a culture that glorifies burnout and distraction. They're declarations that your peace matters, that your life matters. Here's the truth that can change everything. Peace is not about controlling the world around you. It's about mastering the world within you. It's the ultimate act of freedom, because no one can take your peace unless you give it away. And once you realize this, protecting it becomes your most sacred discipline, the foundation for every other kind of control you seek. So today, I challenge you to ask yourself, what am I willing to say no to in order to say yes to peace? What noise can I unplug from? What relationships am I willing to reevaluate? How can I show up for myself with more love, patience, and boundaries? Because protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival, it's strength, it's the quiet revolution that changes everything. Chapter 18. Rest isn't laziness. Have you ever felt the crushing weight of exhaustion, not just in your body, but deep inside your spirit, and then caught yourself thinking, if I stop now, I'm just being lazy. That whisper of guilt, that burning judgment, that shadow in your mind telling you rest is for the weak. That voice has been echoing in your culture, your upbringing, and your own inner dialogue longer than you realize. The modern world has sold us a story where rest equals failure, where grinding non-stop is the badge of honor, and where stopping to breathe feels like giving up. I remember a time when I was working 14-hour days, telling myself that if I didn't keep moving, everything I wanted would slip through my fingers. I ignored my aching muscles, the fog in my mind, and the way my heart felt heavier with every sleepless night. I was chasing success, trying to prove my worth, and drowning in a sea of hustle harder mantras that screamed louder than my own intuition. But what I didn't know then was that rest isn't just a pause. It's a radical act of self-love, a reclaiming of your power, and a sacred form of resistance against a world that demands you be on 24/7. Rest isn't laziness. It is the very soil from which true growth springs. This is more than just a feel-good idea or trendy self-care slogan. It's an ancient truth that our ancestors lived by long before the internet, smartphones, and endless to-do lists took over our minds. Rest was built into the rhythm of their lives, the pause of nightfall, the quiet moments by the fire, the seasons of winter. It's wired into our DNA to stop and renew, yet somewhere along the way, we convinced ourselves that relentless activity equals value, and stopping means losing control. But what if I told you the opposite is true? What if rest is actually your ultimate power move, the secret weapon that unlocks clarity, creativity, resilience, and joy? Science backs this up. When we rest, our brains consolidate memories, reduce stress hormones, repair cells, and restore energy. Without rest, our minds become foggy, our decisions clouded, and our emotional balance fragile. Spiritually, rest reconnects us to our inner voice, the still small voice that guides us beyond noise and distraction. Psychologically, it teaches us boundaries. What is enough, what drains us, and what nurtures our soul. Yet culturally, we keep confusing busy with important. Social media glorifies the grind, and we feel invisible unless we're producing or performing. This relentless pressure wears down our nervous systems and leaves us trapped in cycles of burnout and shame. The cruelest trick is that rest feels selfish when we're conditioned to put everyone else's needs before our own. But what if self-care isn't selfish? What if it's the foundation for showing up fully in your relationships, work, and life? When I finally let myself rest without guilt, without apology, I found that my productivity didn't crash. It soared. My creativity bloomed like a desert flower after rain. My emotional resilience deepened, and my relationships grew warmer and more genuine because I was no longer running on empty. Rest taught me the sacred art of presence. It reminded me that I am human, not a machine. It showed me that slowing down is not defeat, but a powerful reset button. But here's the challenge. True rest requires fierce courage because it means saying no to the noise, the expectations, and the false urgencies. It means trusting your body's wisdom when it says stop, even if your mind screams go. Harder. It means breaking the cycle of I have to and embracing I choose to. This is a discipline, not a luxury. It is an act of rebellion in a culture that profits from your exhaustion. And it is the pathway back to yourself. You might worry, if I rest, will I fall behind? The truth is, the only thing you fall behind on is exhaustion and disconnection. When you rest, you rise. You rise in clarity, energy, and presence. You rise in self-respect and radical acceptance. Rest allows you to hear your own voice clearly again, instead of the endless hum of busyness. It is where your intuition wakes up, where your dreams come back into focus, and where your heart remembers what truly matters. So how do you start? How do you reclaim rest when it feels like the world demands you keep moving? Start small. Give yourself permission to breathe deeply between tasks. Notice the tension in your shoulders and consciously release it. Set a timer for 5 minutes of quiet, screen-free time each day. Slow your pace, not just physically, but mentally. Practice saying no to the things that don't serve your well-being. And most importantly, rewrite your story about rest. Instead of, "I'm lazy," say, "I am honoring my body's needs." Instead of, "I'm wasting time," say, "I am investing in my wholeness." This shift in language is the gateway to freedom. Remember, you are not your productivity, and your worth isn't measured by how busy you are. Your worth is inherent, unchanging, unconditional, and whole. Rest is the pathway to realizing that worth. So the next time you feel the pull of exhaustion or the whisper of burnout, don't reach for another task or distraction. Reach for rest. Let it hold you, heal you, and transform you. Because in rest, you reclaim your power, the power to live deeply, love fully, and create from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. The world needs your rested self, not your worn-out self. You owe it to yourself to slow down, recharge, and come back stronger. Rest isn't laziness, it's a radical act of courage, and it's time you own it. What if the most productive thing you do today is nothing at all? Chapter 19. Energetic Boundaries in an Always-On World. Picture this. It's late at night, and your phone lights up again. Another notification, another group chat ping, a message that pulls you from your quiet, sacred space into the buzzing chaos of someone else's urgent need, drama or distraction. You feel that pull in your chest, a mix of obligation, anxiety, and the fear of missing out. But deep down, you also feel the exhaustion, the slow draining of something precious inside you. This is the cost of living in an always-on world where boundaries blur and energy leaks become so subtle that most of us don't even realize they are happening until we're running on empty. The truth is, this era demands something many of us never truly learned: how to set energetic boundaries. Not just to say no to others, but to say yes to yourself. Because boundaries aren't walls, they're the sacred lines that protect your inner world, your soul's capacity, your emotional bandwidth. Without them, you become like an open door in a hurricane, allowing chaos to tear through your calm and steal your peace. The challenge is that in a culture that celebrates hustle, instant response, and constant connection, setting boundaries often feels like rebellion or selfishness. We have been conditioned to believe that to be available 24/7 is to be valuable, that saying yes to every call, every text, every ask is the currency of love and success. But here's the hard truth. If you never put a limit on what you give your energy to, you'll lose the very thing you're trying to preserve: yourself. Imagine a phone battery that never gets a chance to recharge, constantly drained by apps, running in the background you never even asked to open. Your energy is exactly the same. Each interaction, each emotional demand, each mental distraction is an app running in the background, silently eating away at your vitality. Without boundaries, your battery dies early, leaving you depleted, anxious, and disconnected from your own power. But energetic boundaries aren't just about protecting yourself from toxic people or situations. They are about learning to recognize what feeds your energy and what drains it. They invite you to become deeply aware of the subtle ways your time and spirit are consumed. Maybe it's the endless scrolling through news that leaves you fearful, the group chats that pull you into conflict, or the habit of saying yes to social plans when your body is screaming for rest. The first step in reclaiming your energetic sovereignty is awareness, naming what's happening inside your body and mind when you say yes or no. Do you feel tightness, heaviness, or relief? The body is your greatest ally in boundary setting because it never lies. It will tell you if you're aligned or compromised, if you're protecting your peace or giving it away for free. But awareness isn't enough. Boundaries require action. Saying no is a muscle you must strengthen, and it starts with small, brave steps. Maybe it's turning off notifications during certain hours, or declining a favor that doesn't feel right, or simply telling a loved one, "I need space right now." Each time you honor your limits, you send a powerful message to yourself and the world. Your energy matters. You deserve respect. The real mastery of energetic boundaries is not just in protecting your own field, but in how you communicate those limits with love and clarity. It's a dance between firmness and compassion, honesty and kindness. You don't have to build walls out of fear. You can create gates with grace. This takes practice because it means breaking old patterns of people-pleasing and fear of rejection. But the freedom that comes from owning your space is worth every uncomfortable conversation and every awkward moment. Boundaries also transform your relationships. When you show up clear about your needs, you invite others to do the same. You create space for authentic connection, free from resentment or burnout. People respect those who respect themselves. In this way, boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the foundation for it. Living in an always-on world means learning to unplug, not just from devices, but from the emotional and mental noise that keeps us chained to stress and distraction. It means becoming a guardian of your inner sanctuary. This might mean establishing rituals like morning meditation, digital detoxes, or quiet evenings where you consciously decide not to engage with external demands. It might mean creating physical spaces in your home that are screen-free zones, or setting office hours, even if you work from home. Every small boundary you put in place is a step towards reclaiming your power and your peace. The irony is, the more you protect your energy, the more you expand your capacity for joy, creativity, and presence. When you're not constantly drained, you have more to give, not just to others, but to your own dreams and purpose. And that is the ultimate gift of energetic boundaries. They aren't about scarcity, they are about abundance. They remind you that your time and attention are sacred resources that deserve care and respect. So the next time you feel that familiar pull from your phone, a request, or the temptation to dive into drama, pause and ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Does this serve my highest good? Let that question be your compass. Remember, you cannot pour from an empty cup, and in a world that never stops calling, your deepest strength lies in knowing when to step back, recharge, and show up fully alive. Energetic boundaries aren't just self-care, they are self-mastery. And mastering them means mastering your life. How will you protect your energy today? Chapter 20. The Vibe Never Lies. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt like something was off, even if everything looked perfect on the surface? Maybe you met someone who smiled, but their eyes whispered something else entirely. Or you stayed in a place that seemed beautiful, but made your chest tighten and your stomach knot. That gut feeling, that invisible pulse we call a vibe, is the truth your mind often refuses to see. It's the subtle current beneath all appearances, the emotional energy signature that radiates from people, places, and situations, speaking louder than words ever could. We live in a world obsessed with logic, with evidence we can touch or prove, yet this ancient, silent language of energy, the vibe, is what our deepest self knows to be real. It doesn't lie, no matter how hard. We try to silence it with rationalizations, excuses, or distractions. Your vibe is your soul's truth showing up before your mind catches up. When you learn to listen to it, it's like having a compass that always points you toward your highest good, even when your head is clouded with doubt or fear. But why do we ignore it so often? Why do we chase after things and people who drain us, environments that weigh heavy on our spirit, and relationships that leave us questioning our worth? It's because we've been conditioned to value what looks good externally, to trust the story someone tells about themselves rather than the energy they carry beneath their words. We are trained to suppress the vibe in favor of appearances, to silence our intuition because it's unscientific or irrational. Yet the vibe is the universal truth detector, the emotional GPS that keeps us aligned with who we really are and where we truly belong. I remember once working with a client, a bright young woman named Sarah, who was caught in a toxic friendship. Everyone said the friend was nice and fun to be around, but Sarah's vibe with her was heavy, suffocating, like a cloud that dimmed her inner light. She ignored it for years, convinced by others and by her own mind that she was overreacting. But every time they met, Sarah left feeling depleted, anxious, and smaller than before. Finally, when she allowed herself to trust her vibe instead of the stories, she made the painful but liberating decision to walk away. Within months, her energy shifted completely. She felt lighter, clearer, more alive. Her vibe now attracted people who lifted her up in environments where she thrived. This is the transformative power of listening to your vibe. It doesn't just guide you away from harm, it draws you toward your purpose and power. The vibe is not just about feeling good all the time. Sometimes your vibe will be uneasy because you're standing on the edge of growth, because change is uncomfortable, because you're shedding old skins. That's not a lie. That's your soul's signal that you're evolving, that you're shaking loose the weight of past conditioning, learning to discern between the vibe of discomfort that signals growth and the vibe of toxicity that signals danger is a spiritual skill we all must cultivate. The problem is, many of us confuse the two. We think all discomfort means something is wrong, so we cling to familiar situations that actually harm us because they feel safe. The vibe never lies, but our fears make us deaf to it. When we start to honor our vibe, we reclaim a radical form of self-respect. We stop tolerating energy vampires disguised as friends, lovers, or colleagues. We stop investing time and emotion in dreams that don't align with our true essence. We stop shrinking ourselves to fit into molds that drain our life force. Controlling your vibe means setting energetic boundaries that others may not always understand, but that your soul demands. It means choosing your words, thoughts, and actions with awareness, knowing they ripple out as energy you emit. It means protecting your inner landscape like the sacred garden it is, guarding it against negativity, manipulation, and low-frequency influence. This control isn't about perfection or rigidity, it's about conscious freedom, about becoming the alchemist of your own energy. When your vibe is high, your confidence shines without arrogance, your presence heals without effort, and your creativity flows without blockage. People sense this even if they can't explain it. Your vibe becomes your signature, your superpower. But here's the catch. The vibe never lies, yet it doesn't speak loudly. It whispers, it nudges, it colors your mood with subtle shades before exploding into obvious feelings. Most of us are too busy, too distracted, or too disconnected from ourselves to hear those whispers. Instead, we wait for crises, breakdowns, or dramatic moments to realize something is off. Imagine if you caught those whispers early, trained yourself to notice the tiny shifts in energy before they become storms. What if you could live your life tuned in like a finely crafted radio, always receiving the signals your soul sends? You'd navigate relationships with clarity, choose career paths with confidence, and create boundaries with grace. You wouldn't fall prey to manipulation or self-sabotage. Instead, you'd embody a presence so authentic and aligned that others are drawn to your light like moths to a flame. Not out of neediness, but because your vibe calls them home. The vibe is also a mirror. It reflects back your unresolved wounds, your suppressed fears, and your untended shadows. When you feel drained or uneasy around certain people or situations, it's often not just about them, it's about what inside you is triggered or denied. Controlling your vibe means doing the inner work to heal those places. It means looking honestly at your emotions and patterns without judgment, and choosing to shift your energy by changing your thoughts, habits, and beliefs. It means becoming aware that your vibe is the language your soul uses to communicate with the world and with you. So, how do you start? Begin by cultivating presence. Practice slowing down enough to feel your body, your breath, your heartbeat. Notice the subtle sensations that arise when you're around certain people or thinking about certain things. Journal about your energy levels and moods to see patterns. Set intentions each day to protect your vibe by avoiding negative inputs, whether toxic news, draining conversations, or unhealthy food. Learn to say no before resentment builds. Surround yourself with those who honor your energy, who raise your frequency simply by existing near you. When you do this consistently, you build an energetic immune system, a vibration that repels what doesn't serve you and attracts what does. Remember, control is not about forcing life to your will, but aligning your energy so powerfully that life bends toward your truth. The vibe never lies. It's your internal compass pointing toward freedom, fulfillment, and fierce self-love. Trust it, and you'll never lose your way. Part 5. Control your habits. Chapter 21. Routines that raise your frequency. Imagine waking up one morning feeling like you're trapped in a loop where every day feels like a replay of the last, where your energy drags before the sun even rises and your motivation feels like a distant memory. I remember those mornings all too well, when I'd hit snooze multiple times, scroll endlessly through my phone, and then stumble through the day like a shadow of myself. It wasn't just laziness or exhaustion, it was a signal that my daily habits, The routines I believed to be small and harmless were actually dragging my frequency down, stealing my vibrancy one choice at a time. What if I told you that your routines aren't just habits? They are energetic signatures, vibrations that either lift you higher or weigh you down deeper. Your routines are the invisible architecture of your life's frequency, and mastering them is like tuning a radio to the clearest, most powerful station within you. The challenge is that in our busy, overstimulated culture, most of us never stop to examine what our daily rituals are really doing for our inner world. Are they grounding us, filling us with light and clarity, or are they conditioning us to replay old patterns of distraction, fear, and low energy? Routines that raise your frequency don't have to be grand gestures or complicated morning rituals that feel impossible to maintain. They're about small, consistent practices that ripple outwards, mindful moments of connection to yourself, intentional actions that align your body, mind, and spirit. It starts with the moment you wake up. Do you reach for your phone and dive into the chaos of notifications, or do you take a few deep breaths, reconnect with your body, and set a simple intention? The science is clear. When you start your day with calm awareness, your nervous system gets the message that you're safe, grounded, and ready. This recalibration before the world hits you with its noise is what sets the frequency for the rest of your day. And frequency matters deeply. Frequency is the emotional and energetic tone you broadcast, whether it's fear, joy, calm, or anxiety, and it affects how you move through life and what you attract. When your frequency is high, you feel expansive, creative, and resilient. You attract opportunities, relationships, and experiences that mirror that vibration. When your frequency dips low, you feel stuck, depleted, or invisible. You attract resistance, stress, and toxic patterns. The good news is that routines that raise your frequency act like a daily tuning fork. They keep your vibration clear and strong, no matter what storms rage outside. Take movement, for example. You don't have to become a gym fanatic or run marathons, but simply moving your body each day, whether a short walk in nature, stretching, dancing to a favorite song, or practicing yoga, circulates energy, releases stagnant emotions, and wakes up your nervous system. This movement sends a powerful message to your cells. You're alive, you're thriving, and you choose yourself. Another frequency-raising routine is how you feed your mind. Think of your thoughts like seeds in a garden. If you water weeds with worry, doubt, or toxic gossip, those weeds will choke out your potential. But if you water your mind with inspiring books, uplifting podcasts, or moments of gratitude, you cultivate a mental landscape rich with possibility and peace. This is why the ritual of consuming content matters more than we realize. It's not about avoiding reality or living in denial, but about choosing what feeds your soul and expands your capacity to love and create. And then there is the sacred practice of pause, carving intentional space throughout your day to check in with yourself, to breathe deeply, to observe your feelings without judgment. This could be 5 minutes of meditation, journaling your thoughts, or simply sitting in silence. When you prioritize pause, you invite presence, the very state that allows you to respond to life with clarity instead of react from chaos. This habit alone can shift your frequency from survival mode to thriving mode. The food you eat is another routine that affects your frequency. Nourishing your body with whole, vibrant foods, Fresh fruits, vegetables, clean water doesn't just fuel your physical body, it feeds your energetic body. Many traditions teach that what you consume carries energy, and when you eat mindfully, you support your whole being's resonance. But more than just the foods, it's the ritual around eating that counts. Eating with gratitude, without distraction, connects you to the present moment and raises your energetic state. Sleep, often neglected or sacrificed, is one of the most powerful routines to raise your frequency. Deep, restorative sleep cleanses the mind, heals the body, and resets your energy field. Chronic sleep deprivation dulls your vibration, clouds your emotions, and shrinks your ability to hold your power. Creating a sleep ritual, dim lights, screens off, calming scents or sounds, helps prepare your system for this vital recharge. Beyond physical routines, emotional self-care is critical. This means tending to your inner garden with kindness, letting go of grudges, forgiving yourself and others, and cultivating a mindset of compassion. Emotional routines that foster self-love and release toxic shame or guilt cleanse your energy. Like rain washes dust from leaves, when you consistently practice forgiveness and gratitude, your frequency rises and your heart opens wider than you thought possible. You also need to recognize that routines that raise your frequency aren't about perfection. They're about compassion and presence. Some days you might wake up energized and aligned, other days tired and out of sync, and that's okay. The goal is to gently return over and over to practices that reconnect you with your higher self and your truest desires. It's a lifelong relationship with yourself. In a world that constantly pulls you toward distraction, low vibration, and reactive living, routines that raise your frequency are your daily resistance, your radical act of self-love and empowerment. They create a foundation of stability that supports you through challenges, fuels your growth, and amplifies your impact. The truth is, your frequency is your signature, your personal frequency is your superpower, and routines are the tools that tune it daily. You are not meant to drift through life feeling depleted or disconnected. You were wired to shine, to create, to thrive, and routines that raise your frequency unlock that power one choice at a time. So here is the challenge. Look at your current daily habits with fresh eyes. Which ones lift you up and which ones drain you? What small shift could you make tomorrow morning to start your day with intention instead of autopilot? What tiny ritual can you introduce to calm your mind or move your body? What sacred pause can you claim in the chaos? Remember, transformation doesn't happen in giant leaps, but in steady steps repeated with love and attention. The journey to raising your frequency is a journey home, to the most radiant, resilient version of you, waiting patiently beneath the noise. Will you choose to tune in and turn up your vibration? Will you reclaim your power with rituals that honor your whole being? Your life is waiting, not in some distant future, but now, in the quiet moments where you decide what frequency to live. And what will your signal say? What frequency will you broadcast? The choice is yours. Chapter 22. Discipline is love in action. Have you ever looked at someone who seems to have it all together? The steady job, the strong relationships, the healthy body, the calm mind, and felt like they must have some secret formula, like they're just naturally gifted with willpower that you don't have? I want to tell you a truth that almost no one says out loud. What looks like effortless success is usually quiet, daily discipline wrapped in love. Discipline is not some cold, rigid prison guard standing over you with a list of musts and or can'ts. Discipline is love in action. It's the way you honor yourself by saying yes to what truly matters and no to what only distracts or drains you. Imagine discipline as the most intimate form of self-respect, the daily handshake between your heart's deepest desires and the actions you choose. I remember a moment from my own life when I was barely holding on, mentally drained, emotionally fractured, unsure if I had the strength to face another day. I was tempted to give up on my dreams, to slide back into old habits that promised comfort but delivered emptiness. But something inside whispered, discipline isn't punishment, it's a gift. I began showing up for myself in small ways, waking up early to journal, refusing the extra slice of cake when it wasn't hungry hunger but stress hunger, setting a boundary with a friend who drained my energy. These small acts, at first almost invisible, grew into a fortress of self-love so strong that no external storm could shake it. Discipline isn't about denying pleasure or joy. It's about creating space for lasting happiness. It's about building a life where your actions align with your values, not your impulses. And this alignment brings freedom, the freedom to choose your future instead of being chosen by your past. Psychologists tell us that willpower alone isn't enough. It's fleeting, like a candle in the wind. What sustains us is why we discipline ourselves, the deeper meaning behind our choices. When discipline comes from a place of love for your body, mind, soul, and dreams, it doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like a declaration. I matter. This is the subtle difference that separates temporary effort from lifelong transformation. The world often teaches us to see discipline as a punishment for not being good enough, but that's a lie. Discipline is the most radical act of kindness you can offer yourself in a culture that constantly demands more while giving you less. Think about the people you admire, who seem calm, grounded, and capable. What if their secret isn't just talent or luck, but a steady practice of discipline wrapped in kindness toward themselves? That daily habit of choosing what serves them over what tempts them, even when no one's watching. Discipline is often misunderstood as rigidity, but true discipline is fluid. It's flexible enough to adapt, but firm enough to hold your integrity. It's like the branches of a tree bending in the storm, but never breaking. Every moment you decide to show up for yourself, whether it's saying no to scrolling another hour on your phone or yes to a walk when you'd rather stay on the couch, you're building resilience, self-trust, and confidence. You're telling your nervous system, I can handle this. And here's a paradox. Discipline creates space for joy, spontaneity, and creativity because it frees you from chaos. When your life is anchored by discipline, your energy isn't spent putting out fires or drowning in guilt. Instead, you can play, create, and love from a place of fullness. You become the master of your inner world, rather than a hostage to external circumstances. Spiritual teachers across traditions speak of discipline as a sacred path. In Buddhism, sila, moral discipline, is the foundation for deeper meditation and insight. In Christianity, discipline is tied to stewardship, carefully managing the gifts of life with intention. Even modern psychology embraces this. Habits, self-regulation, and intentional living are keys to mental health and fulfillment. But here's what most self-help books miss. Discipline is emotional first. It's not just about routines or willpower. It's about cultivating love for the person you are becoming. It's learning to hold yourself tenderly, especially when you fail or stumble. Discipline without compassion is tyranny. Compassion without discipline is chaos. Together, they are the dance of self-mastery. I want you to picture discipline as a warm hand holding yours. Not a harsh drill sergeant barking orders, but a steady guide who whispers, "You've got this." This shift in perspective changes everything. When you stop seeing discipline as a battle and start seeing it as an act of love, you unlock an energy source that's limitless. You tap into your own power to create the life you crave. This power is not about forcing yourself into a mold or becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of who you already are, the version of you that's calm, focused, and free. And freedom is the ultimate prize. Without discipline, freedom remains a dream deferred. With discipline, freedom becomes your daily reality. The challenge? This love in action requires consistency when you don't feel like it. It requires choosing the long game over the short thrill. It requires showing up for yourself even on days when your motivation is low or your mind screams, "Give up." This is why discipline is the most courageous form of love you can practice. It's the quiet heroism of sticking to your values when the world tempts you to abandon them. It's choosing growth over comfort, integrity over ease. It's the slow and steady beating heart of transformation. So, ask yourself, what small act of discipline can you commit to today that shows love for your future self? What boundary can you set that honors your worth? What habit can you start that will build your resilience? Remember, discipline is not a one-time event, but a lifelong conversation with yourself, a promise whispered every morning, "I choose me." When you live this way, you don't just survive, you thrive. You become the person who doesn't just dream, but does. The person who doesn't just hope, but believes. The person who doesn't just exist, but lives with fierce love for themselves and their journey. This is the power of discipline as love in action. It's your most radical, transformative, and life-changing choice. Will you say yes? Chapter 23. The hidden cost of small compromises. It's easy to dismiss a small compromise as harmless. A little white lie here, bending a principle there, giving in to temptation just this once. But what if these tiny moments, the ones we overlook or justify in the name of convenience or peace, are actually the quiet thieves of our greatness? I remember a time when I thought bending my truth just a little at work would keep the peace, smooth over a conflict, or earn a nod of approval. No one will ever know, I told myself, and for a moment I felt relief, but that relief was fleeting. Over weeks, those little shifts, downplaying my values, softening my boundaries, ignoring the uncomfortable stirrings of my conscience, built a subtle but relentless erosion in my soul. What felt like a concession, a minor compromise, was really a fracture cracking deeper than I could see. The problem with small compromises is that they aren't small at all. Each one sends a ripple through the architecture of your self-respect, your energy, and your identity. They chip away at the foundation of your personal power, brick by brick, until the house you built starts to feel hollow, unstable, and unsafe. When you compromise your values just to avoid conflict, you're sacrificing authenticity for ease, and ease is never the price of lasting fulfillment. When you settle for less than your worth, you're telling your subconscious that your dreams aren't that important, that your voice doesn't matter. The worst part is how insidiously normal it becomes. Society often praises flexibility and going with the flow as virtues, But there is a dangerous difference between flexible adaptability and surrendering your core. When the line between strength and surrender blurs, you end up walking through life with a fragmented spirit, not knowing why your motivation fizzles or why your energy drains. This kind of hidden cost isn't just spiritual or psychological, it's physical, emotional, and relational. Every small compromise creates dissonance inside you that manifests as stress, anxiety, fatigue, and even illness. You feel like you're fighting yourself from the inside out, trapped between the person you want to be and the person you're allowing yourself to become. And this internal conflict leaks out into every part of your life. Your relationships suffer because you're not fully present or honest. Your work loses passion because you're not aligned with your purpose. And your self-esteem erodes because you're constantly negotiating with your truth. The scary truth is that small compromises often lead to big regrets. The one-time shortcuts we take compound, creating patterns that limit your potential and trap you in cycles of disappointment and self-betrayal. Imagine a river slowly changing its course, not because of a massive storm, but because of countless small shifts in the current. That's what compromises do to your life's direction. But there is a way out. Awareness is the first step. Recognizing when you're standing at the crossroads of compromise and consciously choosing to honor your highest self instead. This doesn't mean perfection or rigidity. It means cultivating a sacred respect for your values and dreams so fierce that you refuse to let even the smallest concessions slip by unnoticed. It's about learning the power of saying no, even when it's uncomfortable, and trusting that your integrity will open doors, not close them. I know this because I've been there, wrestling with the fear of losing approval, comfort, or connection, if I stood firm. But what I discovered is that true respect from others and myself grows only when I'm willing to show up fully honest, even when it's hard. Small compromises may feel like shortcuts, but they often create detours, delays, and dead ends. The cost isn't just in what you lose externally, but in who you become internally. So ask yourself, what small compromises am I making today? Which corners am I cutting that steal my joy and authenticity? What am I settling for that dims the light of who I am meant to be? The answers might sting, but they are your compass back to self-mastery. Because at the heart of controlling your mouth, mind, money, and more is this truth. Your life is only as powerful as the smallest choices you make consistently. Refuse the silent theft of your spirit. Guard your boundaries like a sacred temple. Choose honesty over convenience. Choose courage over comfort. In that choice lies freedom. The freedom to rise as the person you were born to be, whole, unapologetic, and fiercely alive. What small compromise will you refuse today? What legacy do you want to write in the story of your soul? Your future self is waiting for your answer. Chapter 24. The Power of Doing Hard Things First. Have you ever noticed how the hardest thing on your to-do list often feels like a mountain standing between you and everything else? That one task, call it a call, a conversation, a decision, or a project, seems to hold the power to either break your day or make it. I remember a moment in my life when I was paralyzed by the weight of a difficult conversation I needed to have with a close friend, someone I loved, but who had hurt me deeply. The more I postponed it, the heavier my chest became, like carrying an invisible boulder that slowed every step I took. I'd wake up with that knot twisting inside, and before I even got out of bed, my mind raced, imagining every possible disastrous outcome. I tried to distract myself with easier tasks, answering emails, scrolling social media, even cleaning my apartment, but none of it worked. That looming hard thing dictated my mood and stole my energy. Then one morning, something shifted. I decided, almost stubbornly, to do that hard thing first. Before breakfast, before my phone, before any excuse had the chance to grow roots. And the moment I faced it, the mountain shrank. The conversation was hard, yes, but the relief that followed was sweeter than I had imagined. Doing the hard thing first is not just a productivity hack, it's a profound act of self-respect and courage. When we place the hardest challenge at the start of our day, we set the tone for everything else. We tell our brain and soul that we are in charge, that we won't be ruled by fear, procrastination, or avoidance. It's a simple but revolutionary choice that rewires our mindset and body for resilience and success. Psychologically, this practice leverages what some call the eat the frog principle, coined by Mark Twain, who said if you have to eat a live frog, do it first thing in the morning so nothing worse happens the rest of the day. But it's more than just frogs and to-do lists. It's a spiritual reclaiming of our agency. When we do hard things first, we break the cycle of delay that feeds anxiety and self-doubt. The hard tasks become less intimidating because we face them with fresh energy and a clear mind, rather than the fatigue of the day's distractions. Each small victory builds momentum, a kind of inner domino effect, where one courageous act leads to another. Over time, this rewiring builds unshakable confidence. You start to see that the biggest obstacles are often the easiest to overcome once you lean into them, not away. Doing hard things first is also a declaration of our priorities and values. It says, "This matters to me. I'm worthy of attention, even when it's uncomfortable." It's a daily lesson in integrity, teaching us that our word to ourselves is sacred. Every time we follow through on a difficult commitment, we honor that inner promise. But here's the rub. Doing hard things first isn't always about giant leaps or dramatic actions. Sometimes it's the small, subtle things. Saying no when you want to say yes, asking for help when pride wants to keep you silent, choosing rest over busyness, even when everyone else is grinding. These hard things build emotional muscle and deepen self-trust. They are the foundation of personal power. What happens when we avoid the hard things? We don't just postpone problems, we invite bigger ones. Anxiety grows, self-esteem erodes, and the voice inside whispers, "You can't handle this." This inner defeat becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when we confront the hard things head-on, we disrupt that pattern. We become the heroes of our own story, not the victims of circumstance. Doing hard things first also transforms how others see us. It cultivates respect, not just from the outside world, but within ourselves. People naturally gravitate toward those who show grit and grace under pressure. They sense the energy of someone who doesn't flinch from discomfort, but leans into it, who speaks their truth even when it shakes the room. This courage is magnetic, and it opens doors in both personal and professional life. Yet, I won't pretend this is easy. The resistance is real. The part of us that wants comfort and safety fights tooth and nail against doing the hard thing. That's why the first step is often the hardest, the moment when your heart is pounding, your breath is shallow, and your mind screams, "Run." But here's a secret the most successful people share. They've learned to sit with that discomfort. long enough to move through it. They acknowledge the fear, but don't obey it. They become masters of discipline, not as punishment, but as a form of self-love. Doing hard things first creates a ripple effect across every area of life. It strengthens our mouth by teaching us to speak difficult truths with kindness and clarity. It trains our mind to focus and resist distraction. It sharpens our relationship with money because financial discipline often means facing uncomfortable realities first: budgeting, debt, investing. It controls our energy by reducing the emotional weight we carry throughout the day. And ultimately, it empowers us to steer our habits toward growth instead of retreat. So, how do you start? Begin with clarity. Identify the one hard thing you've been avoiding that, if done early, will shift your day or even your life. Break it down if it feels too big. Commit to a time, morning ideally, and prepare yourself mentally the night before. Visualize how good it will feel to get it done. When the moment arrives, breathe deeply, remember why it matters, and move forward. Celebrate every step, no matter how small. Remember, the power of doing hard things first isn't about perfection or grandiosity. It's about consistency and courage. It's about training your heart and mind to choose growth over comfort every single day. It's a practice that honors the truth that you are more powerful than your fears, stronger than your excuses, and worthy of the freedom that comes when you stop running and start leading. So the next time you feel stuck, ask yourself, what's the hardest thing I can do right now? And then do it first. Chapter 25. Letting Go of Instant Gratification. You know that buzz, the instant ding of a notification, the flash of a new message, the sweet hit of a purchase confirmation, or the rush of scrolling just one more time, that little jolt of joy that feels like winning before you even start. That's instant gratification, and we're hooked on it more than we often realize. Think about the last time you wanted something, a new gadget, a quick bite, a rush of social media likes, and how hard it was to wait even a few minutes, or hours, or days. Our culture is wired for speed, convenience, and immediate pleasure, and we've traded patience for fast dopamine hits, hoping they'll fill the cracks in our satisfaction. But here's the truth that often hides behind the shimmer of those quick fixes. Instant gratification is a beautiful liar. It promises happiness, but only delivers fleeting satisfaction that evaporates faster than you can say, refresh. Every time we chase the quick hit, we sideline the deeper work of growing patience, self-control, and meaningful fulfillment. Letting go of instant gratification isn't about being strict or joyless. It's about reclaiming the power to say no to short-term comfort in favor of long-term thriving. It's a radical form of self-love to delay pleasure when you know what you're really after is lasting peace. I remember a moment years ago when I realized this hard truth. I was scrolling endlessly, hunting for distractions, convincing myself that if I just kept looking, the next thing would make me feel whole. But instead, I ended up hollow, craving more, exhausted from the chase. That night, I sat with the discomfort, no phone, no distractions, just silence, and I felt the raw edge of my impatience and fear. That silence was a mirror. It reflected all the ways I had been running from my own discomfort, hoping instant pleasures would cover up the cracks in my soul. The challenge wasn't to banish pleasure, but to learn how to hold space for waiting, to trust that the universe's timeline is better than my own desperate schedule. When we give ourselves permission to wait, to feel the fullness of anticipation instead of rushing to dull it, we build resilience. We learn that joy doesn't have to be instant to be real. Think about planting a seed. No matter how badly you want a tree to sprout, watering it for just a moment won't do the trick. It needs time, patience, and trust in the process, just like our growth. Instant gratification skips that sacred patience, telling us that the moment must be now, or it's lost forever. But real transformation, the kind that changes who you are deep down, only happens when you sit with the discomfort of waiting. And waiting isn't passive, it's active strength. It's a practice of faith that what you want will come, but on a timeline that respects your true worth. The funny thing is, when you start resisting instant gratification, the world pushes back hard. Ads scream for your attention. Friends pressure you to join in on quick pleasures. Your own mind floods you with justifications to give in. That's the battleground of modern life. Discipline versus distraction. Patience versus impulse. But every moment you say no to the quick fix, you're rewiring your brain's reward system. You're telling yourself and your nervous system that you are in control, not your cravings. You become the driver of your life, not a passenger on the express train to burnout or regret. There's a deeper level here too. Instant gratification often hides deeper wounds. It's the wound of loneliness, boredom, or unhealed pain whispering, "Give me something now so I don't have to feel this." Recognizing this means we stop shaming ourselves for cravings and start asking the real questions. What am I afraid to feel? What part of me is starving for connection or meaning? Once we name these truths, letting go of instant gratification becomes a compassionate act, not a punishment. We learn to sit with the pain or the emptiness without running. And as we build that muscle, something miraculous happens. Space opens up for deeper joy, creativity, and peace. You start to find satisfaction not in the next shiny object, but in the quiet moments, the slow progress, and the hard-won victories of self-control. This isn't a call to reject pleasure, but to embrace the wisdom of timing. Pleasure that arrives too fast often leaves a hangover, restlessness, guilt, or emptiness. But pleasure earned through patience feels sweeter, fuller, and more nourishing. This is why some of the most successful and fulfilled people you know are masters of delayed gratification. They don't just want things, they want the right things, for the right reasons, at the right time. And they're willing to wait because they trust themselves, their values, and their journey. So here's your challenge today. Notice where you're reaching for the quick hit. Is it scrolling, shopping, overeating, or maybe saying yes to things that don't serve you? Now imagine what would happen if you hit pause, if you delayed that. Urge just a little longer. Could you let the craving pass like a wave instead of jumping in? What new space could open up in your life if you honored your deeper goals over momentary pleasure? You are not a slave to your impulses. You are a conscious creator of your experience, capable of bending time to your will, not by rushing, but by waiting with purpose. Letting go of instant gratification means becoming a pioneer in your own life, willing to feel discomfort now for a richer, more powerful tomorrow. So when the world screams for your attention with promises of fast fixes, remind yourself. The deepest satisfaction comes to those who learn to wait, because patience isn't just a virtue, it's the gateway to mastery over yourself and everything you desire. How much longer can you wait to become the person you truly want to be? Part 6. Control Your Life. Chapter 26. Stop asking for permission. Have you ever found yourself stuck in the waiting room of your own life, hesitating to move forward until someone else gives you the green light, whether it's a boss, a partner, a parent, or even society itself? I remember a friend of mine, Mia, who spent years shrinking her dreams because she was waiting for her family's approval. She wanted to leave her stable job to start a small creative business, but every time she brought it up, the familiar chorus of, "Are you sure?" or "Is that really practical?" pulled her back into a cage of doubt. Mia wasn't just asking for advice. She was asking for permission, as if her own worth and capacity to make decisions were contingent on someone else's blessing. And the saddest truth is that many of us do this, unconsciously surrendering our power to external authorities, allowing fear disguised as respect to control our trajectory. This habit of seeking permission is a silent form of self-sabotage. It's the invisible leash that keeps us tethered to safety zones that never felt safe in the first place. We convince ourselves that it's about respect or humility, but underneath, it's a story of fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of being wrong or worse, fear of standing alone. The moment you realize you don't actually need permission to live fully, you begin to see how much of your life has been on pause, waiting for the right moment, the right person, the right sign. But here's the thing. Those moments may never come, and those people may never grant you the freedom you already have the right to claim. When you ask for permission, you hand over your power like it's a currency you don't own. And in doing so, you outsource your courage. You give someone else the keys to your confidence, the map to your dreams, and the authority to dictate your worth. It's as if you're asking to be approved before you're even allowed to try, and that's a recipe for chronic hesitation and endless second-guessing. But real control, the kind that transforms your life, starts when you stop waiting for a nod from the outside world and instead learn to trust your own inner compass. It means saying, "I'm done asking if this is okay," and stepping into the reality that your voice matters, your choices matter, and your life is yours to shape. This doesn't mean reckless impulsivity, it means bold responsibility. It means owning your decisions, even when the path is uncertain, and embracing the discomfort of standing alone, if need be. Because here's what I've seen over and over: the people who change their lives, the people who rewrite their stories, are those who stop seeking permission and start giving it to themselves. They understand that permission isn't something to be granted. It's something to be taken with courage and clarity. They know that waiting for others to validate their vision is waiting for the slowest train, when they can build their own road right now. In this shift, you begin to reclaim your agency, and with it your sense of freedom. The world's no longer binds you. Instead, it sharpens your resolve. The voices that once drowned your dreams become background noise to your inner anthem. This transformation isn't easy. It requires peeling back years of conditioning that taught you to doubt your instincts, to defer your will, and to shrink your desires for the sake of comfort or approval. It means confronting your deepest fears of rejection and isolation head-on, realizing that while losing some relationships might hurt, losing yourself hurts more. There is a moment in every story, yours included, where you stand at a crossroads. You can ask for permission again and keep living in the shadow of someone else's approval, or you can say, "I will no longer wait," and step boldly into your own power. When you make this choice, you'll find that the universe starts bending in your favor, not because it owes you anything, but because you finally start showing up as the leader of your own life. Doors you never saw before open. People who matter step forward. Opportunities that seemed out of reach come within grasp. Your energy shifts from passive waiting to active creating, and that change ripples through every area of your existence. Your relationships, your career, your inner peace. So here's the challenge right now. Stop asking for permission to be yourself, to chase your dreams, to speak your truth. The only approval you need is the one you give yourself in the quiet moments. When no one else is watching, start practicing this every day. Take one small step forward without seeking a nod or a green light. It might feel scary, even reckless at first, but that fear is just the sound of your old limitations breaking apart. And remember this, control isn't about having power over others. It's about having power over yourself. The moment you stop asking for permission, you stop being a passenger and become the driver of your own story. The question is, will you take the wheel today? Chapter 27. Your future is hiding in your daily pattern. There's a quiet moment I often come back to, a moment most people never really notice, but it holds the secret to who they will become. It's the moment just before your alarm goes off. In the morning, that split second when your mind flickers between the urge to stay in bed or rise and start the day. That fleeting choice, repeated every day, quietly shapes your entire life. The future you dream of, your success, your peace, your relationships, your happiness, isn't hidden in some far-off place or big dramatic event. It's hidden in the tiny, everyday moments you barely pay attention to. The coffee you choose to brew, the phone you decide to check, the words you whisper to yourself before stepping out into the world. All these small decisions fold into one another like bricks forming the walls of your life's house. If your daily pattern is built on hesitation, distraction, and reacting to the noise, your future will feel uncertain and fragmented. But if your daily pattern is made of intentional acts, however small, of presence, discipline, and self-respect, your future will emerge clear and strong, a life shaped by your own hand instead of circumstance. I want to tell you about a man named David, a friend of mine who always dreamed of writing a novel. For years, he talked about it passionately, but never sat down to write more than a few pages. Every morning, he told himself, "Tomorrow I'll start." But tomorrow never came. Instead, he got caught in the trap of waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, or the perfect inspiration. Years passed. One day, his daughter asked him what he wanted to be remembered for. That question shook him awake. He realized he had been outsourcing his future to a someday that didn't exist. So he made a small change. Every morning before his coffee, he committed to writing just 100 words. Just 100. No pressure, no expectations. Just 100 words every single day. It felt trivial at first, like a drop in an ocean of procrastination. But the pattern stuck. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. His words grew from 100 to 300, then 500. The novel began to take shape, not because of a sudden burst of inspiration, but because of the invisible power of daily habit. This story is not unique. Every achievement, every dream fulfilled, every transformation is the sum of small actions repeated faithfully. What makes This so important is that our brain doesn't differentiate between actions done with excitement and those done with routine. When you repeat an action enough, it becomes wired into your neural pathways, a habit, an automatic behavior. This wiring doesn't just influence what you do, but who you become. If you wake up and reach immediately for your phone to scroll through endless feeds, your brain starts craving distraction and superficial dopamine hits, shaping you into someone who resists focus and depth. If you choose to greet the day with mindful breathing, journaling, or a simple stretch, your brain adapts to seek clarity, calm, and strength. Every choice you make in your daily pattern, what you consume, how you move, who you interact with, etches a blueprint of your identity. It's easy to underestimate the power of small things because the change feels invisible. But invisible doesn't mean insignificant. Like a river carving a canyon, persistence shapes your destiny. The problem is, most of us live as if the future is a lottery ticket we might win one day, rather than a garden we plant and nurture every morning. We look for shortcuts, hacks, and big leaps, hoping they'll suddenly vault us into the life we want. But skipping the daily work is like expecting a skyscraper to rise without laying a foundation. It won't hold. Your future needs roots in your present. I want you to think of your daily pattern as a secret recipe, a formula you write unconsciously that decides whether you'll flourish or flounder. Every hour spent binging shows and zoning out, every late night followed by a groggy morning, every moment lost to self-doubt instead of action, stacks up like debt. It builds a weight that drags you away from your dreams. But the opposite is true too. Small wins, even tiny ones, build momentum. The discipline to wake up 15 minutes earlier, the choice to say no to one unhealthy habit, the decision to listen to a podcast that inspires you instead of a gossip session, all add up. Your future isn't something you chase. It's something you invite by the way you show up every day. And the magic is that once you start seeing your days as the architects of your destiny, you gain a new kind of power, a power to reclaim control from chaos, from distraction, from despair. This power is not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about noticing when you're on autopilot and choosing to steer the wheel back into your own hands. But the truth is, this is hard. Old habits, fears, and comfort zones fight for your attention with the fierce loyalty of lifelong friends. That's why change feels uncomfortable, because you're rewiring your brain's default pathways. Yet discomfort is the sign of growth, not failure. It's a signal that you're breaking the chains of your past and stepping into something new. Imagine if you looked at each day as a vote for the person you want to become, a small but deliberate act of self-love. Would you scroll mindlessly through social media again? Would you hit snooze instead of rise? Would you skip the workout or the book you promised yourself? These are not just questions about habits, they're questions about your worthiness. Do you believe your future self deserves the care and effort you can give right now? Because here's the secret, your future is not a distant dream. It's a living reality you're creating with every breath and every action. Every morning, you choose intentionally, you build trust with yourself. You tell your soul, I see you, I'm here for you. And that trust is the foundation of confidence, resilience, and true freedom. The people who live remarkable lives aren't those who waited for inspiration or the right moment. They're those who showed up for themselves day after day, imperfect but committed. So if your future feels out of reach, don't look outward. Look inward. Look to the rhythm of your daily choices, because the future is hiding there in the Simple, repeated acts you do when no one is watching. What kind of future will you create with the patterns you build today? Will you keep planting weeds of distraction and doubt, or will you nurture seeds of intention and growth? The answer is yours to live into, one day at a time. Rise with purpose, walk with awareness. And remember, your future isn't waiting for you somewhere else. It's unfolding right now in the smallest moments you choose to own. Chapter 28. Control versus flow, the balance of surrender. Have you ever been stuck in a storm of your own making, holding the wheel so tightly, gripping so fiercely that your hands tremble, your knuckles whiten, and the road beneath seems more like a raging river than a path? I remember a time in my life when I thought control was the only way to survive. Every detail, every outcome, every interaction had to bend to my will, or else I felt like chaos would swallow me whole. I scheduled my days down to the minute, rehearsed conversations that hadn't even happened yet, and forced smiles in places where my heart was screaming for release. I wanted certainty, security, and success. But mostly, I wanted to prove that I was not powerless, that I could steer my life without faltering. And yet the irony was crushing. The more I controlled, the more out of control I felt. Like trying to hold water in a clenched fist, the harder I squeezed, the more slipped away. Control became a cage. Flow, the natural movement of life, felt like a wild river I was terrified to touch, because surrender seemed to mean giving up, letting go, losing. But here's what I learned, slowly and with bruises. Control and flow are not enemies. They are dance partners in the grand choreography of life. To live fully, you must learn when to grip and when to release, when to lead and when to follow, when to fight and when to breathe. The balance of surrender is the deepest mastery we can seek. It's a paradox as old as human existence, the fierce power in letting go. Think about water. It doesn't fight the rocks or the banks of the river. It flows around them, carving valleys over time with patient persistence. But it is also unstoppable force. Surrender is not about weakness. It is about wisdom. It's about knowing what you can change and what you cannot, and focusing your energy like a laser beam on the things that matter, while trusting the rest will unfold as it must. When I say surrender, I'm not talking about giving up on your dreams or accepting toxic situations. I'm talking about the grace of releasing attachment to outcomes that you cannot control. It's the courage to say, I will do my part, but I will not carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. This balance is like walking a tightrope between two cliffs. Too much control, and you fall into rigidity, anxiety, and burnout. Too much surrender, and you drift into passivity, confusion, and loss of direction. Neither extreme serves you. It is the tension between control and flow that creates harmony, and it requires daily practice. In the rush of our culture, where hustle is praised and grind is the anthem, surrender can feel like defeat. But the truth is, surrender is a form of strength that few understand. It's the strength to stop pushing against the current and start moving with it. It's the strength to listen to your intuition rather than your fear. It's the strength to hold space for uncertainty without collapsing into despair. Controlling your mind, your emotions, your relationships, your career, they are vital skills. But mastery is not about domination, it's about partnership. The mind must partner with the heart, effort must partner with ease. Planning must partner with spontaneity. When you fight the flow, you exhaust yourself. When you embrace it, you gain momentum. I remember a season when I was desperately trying to force a career path that was not mine. I had mapped out every step, convinced that if I could just control the narrative perfectly, I would win. But life had other plans. Doors closed without explanation, relationships shifted unexpectedly, and my carefully built world began to unravel. I hit rock bottom, filled with rage and despair. It was in that brokenness I learned to surrender, not in giving up, but in accepting that my story was bigger than my control. I began to say yes to the unknown, to trust the process even when it made no sense, and slowly new doors opened, ones I had never imagined. Opportunities that felt like gifts from the universe. That's the power of flow. It brings us what we need when we stop clenching what we think we want. Surrender also means trusting yourself. It's easy to confuse control with competence, but true competence lies in flexibility, resilience, and presence. When you surrender, you listen deeply to what your soul is telling you instead of what your fears demand. You cultivate patience with the timing of your life, which rarely matches the clock on your phone or the deadlines in your calendar. You learn that sometimes the most powerful action is no action at all. The balance of surrender invites us to rest in the paradox that we are both creators and receivers, architects and inhabitants of our lives. It asks us to distinguish between effort and attachment, to work hard without becoming enslaved by results. It teaches us to set boundaries with kindness, to pursue goals with passion, and to release outcomes with grace. This balance is not a final destination, but a lifelong journey, a daily choice. Every morning you wake up, you get to decide, will I push or will I flow? Will I try to control every detail, or will I hold my plans loosely and trust the mystery? Will I resist the discomfort of uncertainty, or will I allow it to teach me? Here's the secret. Surrender doesn't mean you lose yourself. It means you find yourself deeper. When you stop fighting what is, you free your energy to create what could be. When you accept the limits of control, you open to possibilities beyond your imagination. Control versus flow is not a battle to win. It is a dance to embrace. It is the art of living fully, with courage and compassion, with intention and openness. So I challenge you today. Where in your life are you gripping too tightly? What would happen if you loosened your hold even just a little? What fears arise when you think about surrender? And what if surrender is the door to your greatest strength? The invitation is clear. Step into the tension. Feel the fear and the freedom coexisting. Trust that the river of life is carrying you exactly where you need to be, even when the current feels wild. Control your choices, but surrender your need to control the outcome. Flow is waiting for you. Will you dance? Chapter 29. Become the person you needed. There's a photograph somewhere, maybe in a box, maybe buried in your memory, of a younger you, eyes wide with questions, unaware of just how many times they'd be let down, left out, or labeled as too much or not enough. That child, whether 5 or 15, wasn't waiting for a savior. They were waiting for someone to see them, believe in them, and stay. Someone consistent, someone honest, someone safe. Maybe you needed a father who didn't walk out, or a mother who loved without strings. Maybe you needed a teacher who saw your potential instead of your mistakes. Maybe you needed someone, anyone, to say, you matter even when you're messy. But life gave you absence instead of presence, silence instead of softness, criticism instead of care. And so you grew up learning to hide your needs, to minimize your emotions, to outperform your pain, just to earn a sliver of worth. You became your own caretaker long before you knew what that really meant. But here's the hard truth. No one's coming to rewrite that chapter for you. What happened wasn't your fault. But what happens next is your responsibility. Healing isn't about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about becoming the person you needed back then, not for revenge, not for a highlight reel, but because that little version of you is still inside, quietly watching, wondering if it's finally safe to trust someone, and that someone is you. Becoming the person you needed means no longer abandoning yourself when the world gets loud. It means protecting your peace, even when it costs you popularity. It means setting boundaries even when your voice trembles. It means speaking to yourself with the kindness no one else ever modeled. It means giving the younger version of you the home, the hope, the honesty, and the healing they deserved all along. And no, it's not easy. Some days it feels like carrying both the wound and the wisdom. Other days it feels like standing in front of a mirror and seeing both the survivor and the stranger. But the transformation happens when you stop waiting for someone else to fix what they broke, and you start building a life so whole that it makes the past irrelevant. That doesn't mean you erase the pain. It means you stop letting it define you. It means you get to say, "This happened, but it no longer owns me." Becoming the person you needed might look like learning emotional regulation because no one taught you how to feel without falling apart. It might mean becoming a gentle parent to your own kids because you swore you'd break the cycle. It might mean showing up for your friends in ways you never experienced, or becoming a mentor who gives the kind of guidance you were hungry for. And maybe it also means learning to rest, because you were taught that your worth lived in your productivity, or finally pursuing the dreams you buried under other people's expectations. It might even mean sitting with your inner child and saying, "I'm so sorry no one protected you, but I will now." And you will. Not perfectly, not without setbacks, but consistently. See, the world needs fewer perfect people and more healed people. More people who have felt it all and chosen compassion anyway. More people who walk with scars but don't use them as weapons. More people who say, "I know how it feels to be unseen, so I will see others." That's the legacy. That's the power. When you become the person you needed, you stop repeating the patterns that hurt you. You stop projecting your pain onto people who didn't cause it. You stop shrinking to stay safe. You stop choosing chaos because it feels familiar. And slowly, you become safe for yourself and others. Not by pretending to be flawless, but by becoming whole. Becoming the person you needed is spiritual. It's emotional alchemy. It's turning generational wounds into generational wisdom. It's choosing presence over performance. And yes, it's lonely at first, because few will understand the weight of that choice. Some will still want you to be who you used to be. Some will guilt you for growing. Some will test your boundaries, just to see if you mean it. But stay the course. You are not just healing yourself. You are becoming someone your younger self would be proud of. Someone who doesn't yell to be heard, who doesn't abandon themselves to be liked, who doesn't use pain as a personality. You become someone who holds space instead of grudges, who listens instead of lectures, who leads with quiet confidence. That's the kind of power no title can give you and no person can take away. The work is hard, yes, but it's sacred. Because every time you choose alignment over approval, grace over gossip, self-respect over self-destruction, You are rewriting the narrative not just for yourself, but for everyone who comes after you. So the next time you feel small, lost, or afraid, go back to that photo. Look at the younger you with softness. Remember what they needed. Then rise, stand, speak, heal, show up. That version of you is still in there, wide-eyed, waiting, wondering if anyone will come. Let them see you now and say, finally, because they weren't waiting for a savior, they were waiting for you. Chapter 30. Self-mastery is the new success. There was a time when success meant something different. Titles, status, income, shiny cars, likes on a post, admiration from people who don't really know you. We were trained to chase a picture, not a feeling. And for a while it works. You get the job, the partner, the house, the applause. But late at night, when no one is watching, a quieter voice speaks, not from your head, but from a place deeper, and it asks, but are you proud of how you live when no one claps for you? That's where this new version of success begins. Self-mastery is not about control in the way the world taught you. It's not about becoming a machine of productivity or pretending you're always okay. It's about becoming deeply honest with yourself. It's about choosing awareness over ego, growth over comfort, alignment over attention. It's realizing that how you talk to yourself in the mirror matters more than how anyone talks about you online. It's staying soft in a hard world, and strong in a moment where everyone expects you to collapse. And let's be clear, self-mastery isn't sexy at first. It looks like walking away from conversations where you could easily win with a cutting remark. But instead you choose peace. It looks like sitting in discomfort without numbing it, facing your fears instead of blaming others. It's waking up early to move your body because you promised yourself you would, not because someone else will notice. It's pausing before reacting when someone hits a trigger that used to own you. It's replacing the habits that made you feel safe with ones that make you free. It's hard, it's quiet, it's often unseen, but it is where your true life begins. Because, let's be honest, anyone can buy things, fake confidence or copy trends. But very few people have trained their nervous system to remain calm in chaos. Few people have developed the discipline to keep showing up for their healing, their purpose, and their highest self even when it's inconvenient. And that's what separates those who glow with grounded peace from those who chase peace and never find it. In a world that teaches you to master algorithms, master markets, master branding, this is your rebellion. Master yourself. That means knowing your triggers so you don't bleed them onto others. That means unlearning the behaviors that once helped you survive, but now keep you small. That means getting radically responsible for your energy, your words, your thoughts, your spending, your boundaries, your time. It's not about perfection. It's about sovereignty. You start making decisions that come from vision, not insecurity. You stop over-explaining because your life is speaking clearly on its own. You stop chasing closure from people who never gave you clarity to begin with. You stop handing your power to people who never earned your trust. You stop pretending to be less just to be loved more. This is what success looks like now. Peace in your chest, clarity in your mind, truth on your tongue, and integrity in your actions. It's not about being the best in the room. It's about being the most whole in the room. And you can't fake wholeness. You can't shortcut self-trust. You earn it by how you show up daily when no one is watching. People may envy your results, but they will never know the choices it took to become this grounded. They won't see the days you chose silence over drama, discipline over chaos, compassion over revenge. They won't know how many times you sat with your discomfort instead of pushing it onto others. That's the secret no one teaches you about real success. It's built in private. And here's something else they don't say often enough. It's okay if no one understands your journey right now. Self-mastery requires you to disappoint others before you betray yourself. It asks you to stand alone sometimes, not because you're better, but because you're building better within. It asks you to walk away from people, places, or patterns that no longer support the version of you that you're stepping into. And the further you go, the fewer people will be able to walk with you. That's not loneliness, it's alignment. You're not losing people, you're shedding what no longer matches your frequency. The reward is subtle at first. It's peace where there used to be panic. It's purpose where there used to be pressure. It's discernment instead of desperation. You feel it in how you breathe, how you respond, how you sleep at night. That is real wealth. That is real influence. That is real success. And here's the paradox. Once you stop needing recognition, you become magnetic. Once you stop chasing what they told you to want, you start attracting what your soul actually needs. Self-mastery turns you into a lighthouse. You stop begging for light because you've become the source. That's when life gets wild, in the best way. Doors open, not because you force them, but because you're finally in tune with the door. You were born to walk through. You stop proving your worth because you know it's built in. You stop settling for crumbs because you know you've always been the table. You stop performing and start embodying. You no longer need to control the world because you've finally learned how to hold yourself. And maybe that's the real flex now. Not hustle, not hype, but peace, not perfection, but presence, not domination, but direction. You don't need more success, you need more self. Self that's healed, self that's honest, self that's rooted. That's the path, that's the goal, that's the truth. Self-mastery is the new success. So before you chase what's out there, ask yourself, have I learned to sit with myself, lead myself, love myself, and hold myself when no one else will, because that is the ultimate measure of power. Conclusion. There comes a moment, quiet, still and unannounced, when you finally realize no one is coming to save you, not because the world is cruel, but because you were never meant to be rescued. You were meant to remember who you are. This book isn't about perfection, control in the harsh sense, or mastering life with clenched fists. It's about reclaiming your personal authority with open hands, clear eyes, and a steady soul. When you learn to control your mouth, you begin speaking words that nourish rather than destroy, and you discover that language isn't just a tool, it's a weapon or a womb, a bridge or a blade. When you learn to control your mind, you stop being dragged by your thoughts like a prisoner in chains, and instead you rise like the quiet commander of a ship that once sailed in storms but now moves with sacred intention. When you learn to control your money, you break cycles your family never even saw. You stop bleeding self-worth into your purchases, and you begin investing in a future your past couldn't even imagine. And when you control your energy, your habits, your time, your emotional bandwidth, you stop leaking your light into people, patterns, and places that were never meant to hold your fire. But deeper than all of that, this journey is about leadership, not the kind that asks for applause, but the kind that leads from within. Because leading yourself is the hardest, holiest thing you'll ever do. It's easy to manage others, to give advice, to tell someone else what they need to fix. But to sit with your own chaos, to face your triggers without running, to hold your mouth shut when gossip is tempting, to choose a budget instead of the thrill of escape spending, to pause your thoughts before they spiral into self-hate, that's the real battlefield. Self-control isn't about being robotic or rigid. It's about being self-respecting. It's about understanding that you can't build a beautiful life with undisciplined tools. It's about taking your raw, honest self, the version that's been broken, bruised, dismissed, addicted, confused, underestimated, and saying, I still trust you to become something incredible. Because you can, because you must, because no one else can do it for you. In a culture that rewards noise, outrage, indulgence, and distraction, controlling yourself is revolutionary. It's quiet, but loud. It's soft, but strong. It's slow, but wildly efficient. And yes, it's lonely at times, because not everyone will understand why you don't react the way they do anymore, why you won't entertain gossip or overspend, or let your emotions rule the room. But let them wonder, let them stare, let them outgrow you or underestimate you, because while they're watching, you're evolving. And not the kind of evolution that changes your profile picture or flexes your bank account, but the kind of evolution that rewires your nervous system, that heals your family lineage, that allows your children or your future self to walk in rooms your younger self didn't believe they belonged in. That's the power of self-control. That's the quiet, radiant truth of mastering yourself. It's not flashy, it doesn't trend, but it lasts, it sustains, it builds legacy. This book was never meant to just give you tips. It was meant to wake you up, to crack something ancient inside you that remembers you are not your patterns, you are not your worst decisions, you are not your trauma or your temper or your balance sheet. You are what you choose every day in the dark, in the small, in the private. The world doesn't need more brilliant minds or louder voices. It needs more integrated souls, people who walk their talk, who speak only what they'd say to someone's face, who manage money as a sacred tool, who don't let every passing feeling become a permanent decision. And you, the one holding this book, the one still reading, are being asked now to rise, to remember that healing isn't a weekend event, it's a lifestyle. Discipline isn't punishment, it's protection. And control isn't about restriction, it's about alignment. Putting all parts of you finally on the same team. You don't have to get it perfect, but you do have to stay awake. Mouth, mind, money, habits, energy, they're not random chapters. They're interconnected systems. Your words shape your thoughts affect your spending reflects your self-worth. Your energy is drained or restored based on the choices you make around all of it. So control isn't the goal, it's the path. And the destination? Peace, integrity, freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want whenever you want, but the deeper freedom of no longer being ruled by compulsion, reactivity, or fear. That kind of freedom is earned. That kind of power is built. One day, one pattern, one pause at a time. You've made it to this final page, but really, this is the beginning. Close this book not with answers, but with questions. What am I no longer willing to tolerate from myself? What would my life look like if I respected every part of me? My voice, my thoughts, my spending, my energy, my time, as if it was sacred. What could become possible if I stopped outsourcing my life to chance and started designing it with care? The world will keep spinning, the distractions won't stop, the temptations won't disappear, but neither will your power. And now you know where to find it, in your mouth, your mind, your money, and more.